All right, so welcome everybody to the Foundations class on Excel, and I'm looking forward to everyone practicing hands-on, which is the spirit of the accelerator, and getting to know Excel and those features of Excel that are particularly useful for us in the analytics industry and outside of the analytics industry as well. So thanks, Jay, for confirming that you've got 5 files downloaded. Anuj, Murtaza, Shravan. Can I get a confirmation from Arshdeep that you've been able to download the files? Okay, so Murtaza's got the files as well. Okay, so I'm just going to check. So Bhavna's also confirmed she's downloaded the files. Okay, and welcome Mike to the webinar. Just like to welcome a few more people. So welcome Mike, I really appreciate your joining. Given the time of day that we're at right now, which is 7 a.m. in the morning, I believe, PDT for you, Mike. So thanks a lot for joining. You'll find a lot of files that I've uploaded in the handout section. And if you click on the handout section, which is right above the chat, you should have files called exercise 1A, 1B, exercise 2, exercise 3, exercise 4. So could I get a confirmation from Mike on the chat box and from anyone else who has not yet confirmed that you've been able to download the file? Hey Anthony, thank you for joining the session. Nice to see you. Okay, so Mike, I'm just going to wait for you to download those files. Please take your time before we begin. Murtaza, could you please mute yourself from your side? Looks like there's a little bit of noise in the background.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Hi Atanu, thanks for joining the webinar. Hey, thanks Mike. Please take your time, no hurries and worries. Hi Atanu. So Atanu, you might want to download all the 5 files that you see in the GoToWebinar panel. And we will look for your confirmation, Atanu. Please let us know if you have any challenge doing that. Yes, so Mike, you're right. There's total 5 files for today. There'll be more files later. And thanks Arshdeep for downloading the files. All right. Excellent. So superb. We're going to kick off now. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for confirmation. And could I also hear from Atanu? Atanu, have you been able to download the files? All right, so Atanu, you will find the file in the GoToWebinar panel. All right, so where you see the chat box in the GoToWebinar panel, you will also see the file, and you can hopefully download the file from there. So can you give that a shot now, please, Atanu? In case anyone has any challenges downloading it from the GoToWebinar panel, you may also download the files from the Google Drive. So we've actually got a Google link where you can actually download the files as well. So I've shared that across on with everybody. Okay, so if I could get a confirmation, Atanu, that you've been able to download the files, I think we'd like to move ahead and talk about Excel and get alive and kicking with Excel. And from the next class onwards, this will be far more streamlined because I'm in the process of creating a web page which looks very similar to the central page that all of you would already have access to now, right? So just to show you all the Learner Central page, I'm just going to go there now. So here we go. All right. So those of you that have already received the email, the welcome email, would have received the Learner Central page. And this page has all of the classes that we've conducted for one of the previous batches. It's got the videos that you can see over here. So let me use the pointer. So you can actually watch some of the videos before you join the class. You've got the presentations. Now this is the Introduction to Analytics webinar that all of you have already attended. And now we're at class number 2, which is the Foundations of Excel. And you've got the whole class recorded here, and today's class is also being recorded. A similar page will be created for this batch as well. And you've got all the links to download your data and presentations and materials as well. Now, the next batch, the next class, pardon me, for this batch is actually going to be on the 5th of November. So we've got a couple of holidays coming up. So the 2 big holiday weekends that we've got coming up is Diwali, which is on the 30th, and 29th and 30th, a lot of folks are traveling. And then we've got Christmas on the 25th of December. So 24th and 25th of December, a lot of folks will be traveling. We will wrap up this course by the 18th of December, and I hope that works out with everybody. So the last class will be on the 18th of December, and by then we will complete all the 16 classes. So today's class is on basics of Excel, and the next one is 5th and 6th of November weekend onwards. Every weekend we will have classes, on a regular basis. Okay, so you will see a link being sent to all of you once I create this page, which should be tomorrow morning, India time. All of you will receive a link with the updated page and the entire class schedule, but it looks very similar to what you see over here on the Learner Central page. You will also see at the bottom of the page the installation guides, and I know some of you, Mike for example, have been very proactive. You've actually already gone out there and installed the SAS University Edition and R. But if you've not done that, you should be okay right now. I would recommend that you have Excel 2013 and you install Power Maps on Excel 2013 using this link that you see over here. Let me draw it for everyone. There we go. So this is Power Maps for Excel 2013. All right. So this is one thing that you need to install before the next Excel class. And then there's also the Power Pivot, which in case you need to activate, you might want to do that as well. I would recommend that you do not install Tableau at this point in time. There are 2 versions of Tableau that we're going to use broadly as learners. One is the 14 version. So Tableau actually has a trial version, which is a 14-day trial version, right? And it's fully loaded. And I will let you know when you need to install that 14-day trial version, because we will consecutively over 2 weekends close out on all of the Tableau classes that we need to do. So currently, you might be okay if you work on SAS, R, and Excel, and hold off on Tableau. We will also have the schedule updated over here. So this link will have the schedule updated right there for all of us. All right, so let me see. Power Map, we've got a couple of comments. So Anthony's got a comment saying Power Map is not available for Excel 2015 for Mac. Okay, so Mac can pose a few challenges. All right, the users who are on Mac will find that Microsoft does not give all the excellent capabilities, right, that it gives to Windows users, to the Mac users, right? So Microsoft basically has sort of limited, capabilities out there that you can use on the Mac computer. But I think that should be perfectly fine, because if you do need to practice, and you can let me know, and I will see if I can make sure that anyone who has a Mac has at least 2 hours of uninterrupted access, on Saturdays and Sundays at a particular time. And I will give you my computer with all the controls, and you can practice on my computer if there's anything that you cannot practice on a Mac. That would be like Power Maps and Flash Fill, which is another excellent feature, Anthony, that will be hard to practice on maps. Okay. So let me go back up now, and we will create this page for you folks, right? And if there are no more comments, I'm going to take it forward now and jump straight into the class, right? So welcome everyone. I think the most important thing when you look at, analytics is also to be able to grasp the fundamentals of Excel, because no matter how much people, talk about Python and R and Tableau, those of us that have been in the analytics industry can vouch for the fact that 60% of the last mile analytics is still happening on advanced versions of MS Excel. So you heard me right, that's 60%. And believe you me, let me ask you a question here on chat, okay? And let's see what the response is from the whole audience. So the question is, how many rows of data, right, can Excel handle, okay? So if you already know the answer, don't answer, but for the rest of you, let's guess, all of us, how many rows of data do you think an Excel file can handle comfortably without crashing and without causing performance issues? Okay, and there's no such thing as bad guesses, right? Okay, so Mike's got a guess, 1 to 3 million. 20,000 says Sai. Anthony says there's no limit except system memory. Okay, how about the others, folks? So I need everyone to guess. I don't care if you look silly, right? So Shravan, Murtaza, Kritika, everyone. Okay, so Kritika says 5 million, 5,000 says Murtaza, and Jai Singh says 50,000, 1 million says Arshdeep. Okay, fantastic, folks. So you'll be stunned, right? Excel used to have very limited capabilities. There was a time where if you went beyond 32,000 rows, you'd probably have Excel crashing on you, right? And Atanu, I think you might have noticed that way back when we used to work in 2004, 2005. But as on date today, right? Excel can comfortably, and I mean comfortably handle 97 million rows of data. Okay, and we're now beginning to talk about almost big data proportions of data, right? And this happens using the Microsoft BI suite that you can install into Excel. Okay, and all of the features that we're going to learn apart from today's class are all Microsoft BI tools. So specifically, the tools that I'm going to cover in this program, which are hugely beneficial for any analytics professional, are Power Pivot and Power Maps, and also Power Query. Okay. Now, if you Google these, you'll find that these are hugely popular tools that you can install into your version of Excel. All right. So Atanu, I think you sent your chat comment to me in private. Please feel free to say hello to the whole audience by selecting all entire audience from the drop down when you send the chat comment. Okay, but thanks a ton. Atanu's guess was 10,000. Okay, great. So what are we going to learn today? Now, all of this is going to look like mumbo jumbo right now, but it's going to unravel itself very shortly. So we've got tables and more, which is basically all of the benefits of converting things into tables in Excel. Right, that's one thing that we're going to touch upon. We're going to learn about ways to fill data into your Excel sheets, which are automatic, which are efficient. The first one's called Autofill, which a lot of you may have used intuitively, and the second one's called Flash Fill, which is only in Excel 2013 and above. And that's based on a PhD research. It's actually a machine learning algorithm that is right here inside Excel. You heard me right, machine learning in Excel. Okay, and then we're going to talk about how you can consolidate multiple ranges of data in a very, very efficient manner, and how you should not consolidate it. And we're going to learn about a very special descriptive analytic tool, visual analytics tool that we've got in Excel called sparklines. So you see these little guys here, right? So these are the sparklines that we're going to learn to create in Excel and understand why these are useful, under what circumstances, what kind of data and variables benefit from us using sparklines. We're also going to learn about conditional formatting and surface charting, which is what you see here, where we're drawing on the chart right there on the surface of the data, as opposed to drawing it somewhere else. All right. And after that, we've got more stuff coming up. So we've got Excel Power Pivot, as well as Excel 3D Power Maps. So you're going to create graphs like this that you see on your screen right now using Excel, believe it or not, as well as 3D heat maps. Right now here you see the heat map of Chicago that we're going to create as a part of this program, and videos as well, right? So these are some of the links to download these tools, which I will share with everybody, and then this is the conclusion of the presentation. So folks, like I promised you, we're about 80% practice and 20% theory, so we're going to jump straight into our Excel sheets now. All right, so here we go. Everyone can open up their MS Excel. Okay. And you could open up the first file, which is exercise 1A, right? So I've opened up exercise 1A now, and this is what it should look like. Can everyone say yes once you've opened up exercise 1A in the chat box, please? Hey, thanks, Anthony, Ashdeep, Anuj. I'm just going to wait for everyone else to open up MS Excel and open up exercise 1A. Okay, so Jay, Sai, Shravan, everyone's opened exercise 1A. Bhavna, thank you. Anthony's got it open. Mike's got it open too. Okay, fantastic. How about Atanu here? Atanu, have you got exercise 1A opened up? Murtaza as well. Okay, fantastic. And Atanu? All right. Okay, folks. So here we go. Now, the first and most fundamental thing that I want to talk about is how do you actually copy any formula that you've got in your analytics? How do you copy that formula to a lot of data? So let's see what we've got on the screen here, right? We've got an amount in US dollars or whatever currency you may like, and you've got a tax computation which says, if you look at the formula carefully, it says 3% of B4. So B4 multiplied by 3%, which in this case works out to 10.56. All right. Now, suppose I want to actually copy this 10.56 to the rest of my data, and this is the rest of my data. What might be a good way of doing it? Okay, so let's take a couple of quick guesses now. Hey, thanks, Atanu. So how can I actually apply this formula to all of the cells that are below? We do it on a daily basis, right? How do you actually apply this formula? What do you do to apply this formula to your entire data set? Come on, folks, let's all guess. All right, so drag, there you go. So Kritika's got the absolutely, most popular answer, and 95% of the planet Earth, okay, drags, right? And Mike's got something a little more interesting, copy paste. Sure, we'd love to copy paste the formula. The only thing is, how do we actually do that? So any ideas? Okay. So Anthony says drag or click at the bottom right of the formula cell. Absolutely, right. So here we go. Let's have a look at this, right? And I'm going to show you what typically happens, right? There's a format painter for the entire column, says Bhavna. Paste special for formula only, says Mike. These are great suggestions, folks. Thank you. I see that some of you have got it here. But let's look at how most of the planet does it. And please be patient with me that if you know how this is done. Most people actually drag. So believe you me, most people will go like this, and then they start dragging all the way till the bottom. right? And you'll be surprised that sometimes people drag for up to thousands and thousands of rows of data. And I've seen people sitting there, for the better half of, 5 to 10 minutes, dragging formulas around, right? And that's not a great solution. Okay. By the way, if you really do need to drag, you might want to just zoom out using the bottom right corner of your panel and zoom out till you can barely see the data and drag, because it's absolutely inconsequential whether you can see the data or not. That's a faster way of dragging. But guess what? We don't really recommend that you drag anything at all. So there's got to be a better way of doing this, right? Okay, so again, is equal to this multiplied by 3%, 10.56, and here's what we're going to share with you today. So the other piece is you could actually go to the corner of this cell and you could double click on this and boom, there you go. Problem solved, right? One of you actually suggested this solution. But as I go down, whoops, we've got a problem here. What do you think happened? Why do you think Excel stopped over here and didn't really go forward after cell number B15? Anyone? Can everyone chat up and tell me why do you think it stopped here? Okay, absolutely. So there's a gap over there. So what do? Well, 95% of the planet goes over the gap like this, drags it forward, and double clicks again till they reach another gap, and then they drag it down and double click again, right? Now, there's a lot of ways of doing this, but guess what? This is not the best way, right? So there's got to be a better way of actually doing this, right? And here's what we recommend. So I suggest that first of all, you've got, the ability to drag your bar all the way down till the bottom of this data. So you've got the cursors, but you've also got the bar, and you can drag it all the way down till you notice that you've got 5003 rows of data, and then go back up again, right? Okay. And what you can do is click on 352 over here and insert a table. So how do you do that? Well, you can actually select a little bit of data, maybe let's say up to row number 7, and then go to insert right on top and go to table and insert a table. You'll notice that it says B3 and then all the way till C7, right? As it turns out, we've got 5003 rows of data, not 7 rows of data. So probably we could go from B3 all the way till C5003. So I've removed 7 and I've put 5003. Now, the moment you do that, you notice that you've got these nice colors, light blue, dark blue. You've got some filters, which Excel has put in place for you. And it's also actually identified your entire data. It doesn't look like a lot has happened, right? But here's what just happened. So if I say now 3% multiplied by 352 and I hit enter, boom, all the way till your 5003rd row, the formula has been applied. All right. And that's the power of inserting a table into Excel, because it tells Microsoft till where your data goes and till where the formula should go. Now, understand you me that Microsoft is paranoid about being sued. So unless you tell Microsoft till where your data exists, which is row number 5003, Excel's not going to help you. But the moment you tell Microsoft where your data starts and ends, it immediately goes ahead and starts helping you. So can everyone please practice this right now as we speak? So the steps that you need to do is select, the table from amount all the way till tax. So from B3 till C7, and go to insert table, and change, just click there and remove 7 and make it 5003 rows of data and click OK. The moment you do that, you say equal to 3% multiplied by 352 and boom, it calculates this for your whole table. So I'm going to give everybody a quick minute or two to practice this and confirm in the chat box once you're done. And I'd like everyone to practice, please. All right, so Murtaza done, Jaising done, Sairam says nice, okay. Okay, Anthony says it stops at the empty lines, all right. Done for Anthony, done for Sairam. All right, so Atanu's asked me to repeat this. Bhavna's done. I'm just going to wait for all of the others to confirm that you're done. Right, so let me go back here and see if I can just repeat. This is really easy, folks, and I'm going to make it even easier for you. Just select some of the data, okay? Let's say from, well, B3 till C7, and say Control T. So use the Control button and T for Tom, and that's it. It's going to open up this little dialog box here for you. Using the Control T button, you want to delete the 7 and you want to put 5003 because you've got 5003 rows in your data. And then you just want to say over here equal to 3% multiplied by 352, and boom, it applies this to your entire table in 1 second. All right. So how do you edit the table, says Ashadeep. Ashadeep, what do you want to edit about the table? If I could just understand that a little bit better. If you could please plug it into the chat box. Okay, so while Ashadeep gets back to me, this is probably the best way for anyone to actually apply one formula across a certain table, and we'll learn why in a very short while, folks. Okay, so was everyone able to do this? How about Mike, Kritika? Were you guys able to practice? Okay. Okay, so Ashadeep says, oh, okay, got it, Mike. I completely understand, right? So, so do let me know, Mike. I'd be more than happy to, organize a session where I can give you controls of my computer. This could be done on a Saturday or Sunday at a time that works for you, and you'll be able to easily practice all of this on my computer. So absolutely no worries. If you don't get your hands on Excel, Mike, I'm going to make sure that I give you my copy of Excel. Okay. Yes, so this doesn't work if you keep the formula while building the table. Okay, thanks, Mike. Yes, so anyway, that's a good observation there, Shravan. Okay, so I think everyone's done, right? And we're going to move to the next exercise. Right, so Atanu, you're on the private chat. So where you see the option to chat, you need to select, there's a drop down, you need to select send chat to entire audience, send chat to all entire audience, okay? And then it'll come to everyone. All right, folks, so we're going to go to the next exercise, which is called more data. And please go to the pane that says more data. Now, typically in analytics, what's going to happen is that you've got some data that you're working with, and you see that over here. So if I just talk about this data for a quick second, you've got an ID, you've got an amount that corresponds to that particular ID, and then you've got some formulas X, Y, YA, QF, yada yada, right? And if you look a little closely at these formulas, you will see that here's the amount, and this formula is 3% of the amount. This formula YA is 3% of XY, and then QF is actually 3% of D5. Well, the point is not the formulas. The point is that this is the raw data that you see over here, right? And this over here are your calculated fields. Now, more often than not, there's a couple of things that go wrong. One is that sometimes people insert a calculated field like so in the middle of their raw data, all right? And I would strongly suggest that you don't do that, and I'll share the reasons why very shortly. But suppose I say that this is equal to 3% of 352, and you've got a calculated field right here in the middle of your data. Well, we recommend you don't do that, and here's why, right? Now check this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click anywhere on this table, folks, and I'm going to say Control A, which immediately selects the whole table, and Control T, which brings up a dialog box for us to insert a table, and I'll say OK. By the way, it also has a checkbox there that says my table has headers, and that checkbox is checked right now, which is great because my table does have headers, and I say OK. The moment I do that, I've got that familiar formatting. And by the way, there's a lot of table tools right on top of Excel. So let me see if we can actually show you. So right on top over here, you can choose, a color combination or a formatting that you think works well for you. So let's go with the little formal. Let's go with gray and blacks and whites. Okay, there you go. Now, apparently there's no benefit of doing this, but here's what. When you copy more data, let's suppose you get more IDs and more amounts like so over here, and you want to apply the same calculations and formula to additional data. All you need to do is select your data minus the headers, and I'm going to do that now. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come to cell number A11, and I'm going to paste it, and boom, there you go. So as you can see, all of the formulas automatically got updated, right? As opposed to the way that people usually work with Excel is that they've got these formulas here, they're going to copy their data, they're going to come and paste it over here, and then they're actually going to drag each one of these formulas down, or they're going to double click, or they're going to do something, right? It's not required. It's absolutely not required. Once you tell Microsoft that this is your table, you say Control A, Control T, and you say OK. Anything that you put below the table over here will be treated as an extension of the table that you've already created right above. So if I copy this data and I go paste it on A11, Microsoft now understands you've given it the command that this is my raw data, and it applies these formulas for you. They're not afraid of being sued anymore. Now, the only danger is that you've got to be careful with anything you put below a table, and I'm going to talk about this in a very short while. There are more advantages, and the other advantages are even if you get data next month that has gaps in it. So over here, you can see your data with the gaps in it, right? So even if you get this data with gaps, once you've inserted your tables, Microsoft now has permission from you to treat those gaps with intelligence, and what it does is it computes the zeros right there for you, even though that there are gaps over here. Otherwise, you may have gotten error in these tables, in these cells over here. Okay, great. So I'm going to zoom out now, and please keep saving your work, right? So whatever you're doing on your Excel sheet, please keep saving it and mail it to me whenever you've had a chance to practice or at the end of the class. It all works towards credits in the course. Okay. All right, so now it's time for everyone to create the table and paste these data sets there and watch the magic as the formulas automatically update themselves. So let's take the next couple of minutes to do this, folks, and then we're going to move ahead. So for those of you that missed it, click anywhere on the table, Control A, Alpha, Control T, Tom, and then OK. And copy only the data. Please do not copy the headers. Copy only the data and go and paste it right here. I'm sorry. There we go. All right. So let's see how this works on your computers at your end. Anyone who's practiced this already, I'm going to have a screen share. We're going to have a look at your screen now. All right, so Bhavna's practiced this already. Let's go over to Bhavna's computer and see if we can grab a look at her screen there. All right, so give me a second here while there we go. So Bhavna, I'm going to make you a presenter. Can you please accept and say show screen? There we go. So we're live on Bhavna's screen now. All right, fantastic. Fantastic. We can see that worked very well for you, Bhavna. And let's see if we can also go now to Anuj's screen. Just give me a second here while I make you the presenter. Anuj, please accept the offer. All right, so Anuj, you have to mute yourself from your end. Looks like there's some ambient noise in the background. Can you please press the mute button, Anuj?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, no worries. I'm just going to make myself the presenter again. Sorry about the noise there. So Anuj, in the GoToWebinar panel, you will see the option to mute yourself. Could you please do that now?
Okay.
So you'll see a mic, you'll see a very small mic icon, which basically is going to put you on mute, Anuj. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you so much. All right, folks, so I hope everyone else has also had a chance to practice this. Can I just have a look at the chat box again? Anyone who has not been able to do this, or would you like me to show you this again? Shall we go ahead now? Anyone who has not been able to practice this or would like to see it again? Okay, Atanu says, show it again. Okay. Sairam says header. Please repeat, says Murtaza. Okay, perfectly fine. All right, sir. So let me just go Control Z. Folks, I'll take it really nice and easy here, okay? So I'm going to click anywhere on this table. Okay, it doesn't matter where you click it. I'm going to say Control A and select the whole table. If you prefer, you might use your mouse and select the whole table using the mouse as well. Both work just fine, right? So Control A, and then you can go to Insert Table right on top of Excel over here, or you can just go for Control T, T for Tom, and say OK. The moment you do that, you've converted this into a table inside Excel. So understand you me that unless you insert a table, Microsoft will not treat your data as a table. It's going to treat it more like a painting. All right. Now I copy my data over here. Is there a way to copy the data without header row and without dragging the whole sheet? Yeah. So I'm going to copy it without the header sign. So if you can see, I'm going to copy from cell number H4, which is 33, all the way till cell number I10. Okay, I'm going to copy this data, Control C, I could do Control C, and then I'm going to go and paste this data on cell number A11, Control V. There you go. Okay. So Murtaza, Atanu, was that clear? Can you please confirm before I move ahead? All right. Just give this a shot at your end. It works really well. I'm just going to wait for Murtaza and Atanu to confirm this. All right, so Murtaza is done. Okay. And Atanu, I hope you're done as well. All right, so folks, I'm going to move ahead now in the interest of time. And don't worry, just practice this at your end and it's going to work just fine, right? All right, if there are many rows, still we should drag. There is no need to drag Sai. So Sai, could you unmute yourself from your end, please? So I'm actually not dragging anything here, right? So I'm actually just pasting the data, and Excel automatically, detects that it's a table. So there's absolutely no dragging involved, right, over here. Okay, so I can't seem to unmute you from my end, Sai. So, okay, for copying the data. Okay, Sai says for copying the data. All right, so Sai, you're right. So in case, your data is not contiguous. So Sai's got a very good point here. Let me illustrate what he's saying to all of us. What he's saying is, suppose you've got a lot of data, right? Let's say, it's a lot of data with a lot of gaps all the way like this, like so, right? And the data's got many gaps. And so what Sai is saying is, now how do I actually select all of this data? I'm still going to have to go all the way till the bottom to select the data. So it is true that wherever there are gaps, you will have to make a one-time effort and drag. Now, if you want to drag really fast, I suggest you use the bottom right corner to zoom out. And the moment you zoom out, you can actually drag like this really fast, right? You can even drag thousands of rows in the matter of seconds, right? If you ever have to get to that point, right? Okay. All right, perfectly fine. So we're going to move to the third one, which is called pane, okay? And I'm going to show you all the different benefits there are of inserting tables into Excel as you work on your data. Thanks, Sang. All right. So now here's something that's really important, right? So the one thing that I did tell you is that the calculated fields should be on the right hand side of your table, and the data, the raw data, should be on the left hand side. I would strongly urge you to never put calculated fields in the middle of your raw data, because that makes it really hard for you to copy additional data. So if I insert another calculated field here, let me call it tax 4, and I say, let's suppose this is a new tax that the government's just levied on the entire industry, and let's say that this is 0.45% of 352. Right now the problem is, now that I've inserted this calculated fields, I can no longer copy my raw data and paste it like so. Right? I'm going to get a lot of errors. And as you can see, the little green errors that have come here in the Excel sheet, right? If you look closely inside the cells, you see that Microsoft is suggesting that there's an error here, right? Okay. So for this reason, there's a couple of learnings here for us, right? We don't want to actually insert calculated fields. We want to keep the raw data in our analytics industry on the left-hand side and the calculated fields on the right-hand side. Okay. And I hope that works for everyone. And one more suggestion is that we don't want to put any formulas at the bottom of the table. So you don't want to put a formula here. Let's say, for example, when you look at the total tax payable, you want to put it on the right-hand side of the table and not below the table. And the whole reason for that is that if you put any total like so below the table, as you add more and more rows of data, you'll find that there's going to be a collision between the data, and you're going to actually lose, the entire. There you go. So we actually lost that calculation there. Okay, the total calculation. Okay. So for that reason, we would strongly recommend you don't put any formulas or anything for that matter below a table in Excel. Please put it between the tables, so it would be perfectly fine. For example, if I had, let's say, there you go. So if I had, for example, another table over here, it would be perfectly fine to put my formulas between the two tables. Okay, so I could probably put a formula called a total, and I could say the total is equal to I could say probably the total tax. Okay, so for example, if I were to say total tax, and I would say this is the sum of the entire column XY, right? So let's say it's just the sum of this. So it would be perfectly fine to put it right here between the two tables, but not below any of the two tables. So these are what we call the Excel SOPs, and I have actually been trained on the Excel SOPs by Dr. Nitin Paranjpe. And Dr. Nitin Paranjpe is a Microsoft most valued professional globally. So he's one of the top 100 people globally on Excel, and I've had the opportunity to undergo this training with him. It's called the Excel Standard Operating Procedures Training, Excel SOPs. Okay. So has everyone practiced this? Can we go ahead to the next one, which is called pane? So I know Mike is, Mike doesn't have a computer, but how about everybody else? I'm sorry, I mean Mike doesn't have Excel right now, but how about everybody else? Okay, so Mike says you may see another joiner. Hey, that's perfectly fine, Mike. That's great. Yeah. All right, that's great. Please go ahead. Atanu says yes, please. Saira says done. Yes, Excel 2010 is going to work perfectly fine for all of these exercises that we're doing here today. And the good news is that it's also possible to, install Power Pivot on Excel 2010. The only thing that is kind of hard to do in Excel 2010 is Power Maps. Power Maps doesn't work quite as well on Excel 2010, but everything else is great. All right, so Mike's switching to another computer. So let me just see if I can move to the next sheet or the next exercise. There we go. So here we go. I'm going to move to the third tab in this exercise, which is called pane, P-A-N-E, right? Okay. So how many of you use a feature in Excel called freeze panes? Okay. So I'm going to wait for some comments from all of you. How many of you are using freeze pane? All right, so quite a few of you, right? Atanu uses it. Anthony, Sairam says no idea. Okay. Bhavna hasn't used it. Murtaza hasn't used it. All right, folks. So there is an option, in Excel to freeze the pane, right? And it's something that a lot of people use, right? How about you, Mike? Have you had had a chance to use the feature called freeze panes? Let's see if I can hear from everyone. Okay. Okay. So while everyone gets back, let me just see. Okay. Mike's done it in Google Sheets, and Ashdeep says no. All right. So look, folks, the challenge is, a lot of the times, right? What happens is that you actually don't know what's going on once you get deep inside your data. So right now over here, I see amount, I see tax, I see discount, sales tax, cess, surcharge, and a lot of other calculated columns, right, in this particular data set. And it's fairly clear to me which one is amount, which one is tax, which one is discount, like this. But when I get deep down into my data like so, all right, now I've got no way of knowing which one is actually amount, which one is tax, which one is cess, and this becomes, very distracting. So what do? So I go back up, and then I figure out, okay, column E is sales tax, column F is cess, right? And then I go back down, but then now I'm lost again. So one is this, okay? The other is when I scroll all the way to the right, sometimes on the left, I've got a column, for example, employee ID that I want to see. And a lot of people use a feature called freeze pane, okay, P-A-N-E. But like you can see, I've got a spelling mistake here, right? Is that a spelling mistake, pane? But my whole point to you is that it's not a spelling mistake. We think that freezing panes is something of the past and is absolutely not required. Okay, you actually don't need to freeze anything at all now in Excel, and I'll tell you exactly why that's happening. So we're actually going to look at the way that you can actually achieve this without freezing any pane. Okay. So now here's my data, and I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. Right, here's my data. You click anywhere on the data and you say Control A and Control T for Tom, right? And you insert your table, right? So Control A, Control T, and you say OK. There you go. Boom, we've got the table inserted into Excel. Now Microsoft knows where my data starts and where my data ends, right? Okay, I hope everyone's done this. Now notice what happens, as you actually scroll up and down, all right? And just watch this a little carefully, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen now. As you can see, over here, you see B, C, and D, right? Which is the column B, column C, and column D. And over here, you see the names of the variables in your analysis, which is the amount, tax, or discounts, or as you call them colloquially, you call them the names of the columns. So this column is amount, this column name is tax, and this column name is discount. In analytics, we call them variables, right? So it's amount is the first variable, tax is the second variable, discount is the third variable. Tax and discount are calculated variables. And over here you see B, C, and D. Now watch what happens when I actually scroll down, and I'm going to scroll down now. Once you've inserted the table, okay, and suppose you're inside the table, right? We've inserted the table and we're inside the table. So I'm clicking inside the table, and as I scroll down, watch what happens. There you go. So does anyone see what's happening here as I scroll down? Did anyone notice something? Can you put it into the chat box? Just watch carefully what happens to B, C, and D. All right, there you go. We've got some comments. So the column names have changed to the variables, says Anthony. And Atanu says the variables also go down, right? So did everyone else notice this, right? Exactly. Kritika says they're visible. Okay, and Bhavna says, it's been updated. So now, once you've inserted your table, yet another benefit of inserting tables into your Excel sheet is that, when you go down into your data, you can actually see the names of the variables in the data. So that solves the problem of, you're freezing the panes in this direction, right? Now, here's another challenge, okay? And I'm going to go all the way to the right. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert another column and I'm going to calculate a hypothetical tax. Let's say it's 4.8%. It's a new tax that the government introduced and I want to multiply this by amount. Now the whole problem is on way to the left of the table. It's right there in the beginning of the table. So I use the scroll bar, horizontal scroll bar to scroll till amount. I click on 352 and I hit enter. The moment I do that, well, Excel's done all of the hard work for me because it's a table. I was able to actually calculate this. But my point to you is that how many times are you going to scroll left and scroll right and scroll left and scroll right? Is that efficient, right? And imagine if this is millions of rows of data, right? There's got to be a better way of doing this, isn't it? So what could be the better way of doing it? So 4.8% of amount multiplied by amount. How do I actually do this in the most efficient way possible if I'm an analytics professional? Okay, so there's a couple of suggestions. Let me open up the chat. Absolutely. So, Anuj has actually, got the suggestion bang on. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up the square bracket and watch what happens, right? So I open up the square bracket and the moment I open up the square bracket, all of the variable names pop up right there, okay? So I can see amount, tax, discount, sales tax, they're all over there. So I wanted this to be 4.8% of the amount, so I double click on amount and I close the square bracket and I hit enter. There you go. So I'll show you again, okay? So I say equal to 4.8% multiplied by, and I open the square bracket and I get all of the variables inside this table right there for my consumption, and I can click on any of them. In this case, I click on amount, I close the square bracket and I hit enter, and boom, I'm done. So this now makes it unnecessary for me to use freeze panes vertically. I don't need to go anywhere in this table. I can get all the information I want right here. Okay? And check it out, you can add another column. You can say equal to, open a square bracket, and you could say discount, and suppose you want to calculate the amount minus discount. You'd open your first square bracket and say amount, close it and say minus, open your second square bracket and say discount, and there you go, you close that as well and you're done. Okay, so this would be the net amount. All right, now can everybody please practice this? So let's go back to all of you, over to all of you. Please insert your table, okay, Control A, Control T, and practice everything that we just saw. First, scroll down and make sure that your variable names are actually showing up instead of B, C, and D, which are the column headers. Okay, and then I want you to practice the square bracket, using the square bracket. So this is going to eliminate the need for you to ever freeze any pane in your life. All right. Right. So I'd like everyone to practice this, and I'm going to have a look at a couple of your screens to just see that we're doing well. And let me know once you've practiced this. If you had any challenge, please let me know and I'll demonstrate this to you again. But please try it first once from your side. So this is yet another benefit of inserting tables into Excel. There we go. This is what it should look like at your end, the raw data. So I clicked on this table, I say Control A, Control T, insert the headers, and somewhere in between I insert my formula as well. You could probably go with the formula that I just spoke of, which is net amount, and assume that to be equal to the amount minus the tax, minus the discount, right? There you go. All right, so Bhavna is done. How about everybody else? Atanu is done. I'm waiting for everyone to confirm that they're done. Ashdeep, thank you. Jay Singh, thank you. Hi Jay, thanks a lot. Sai, thanks. Anthony, Murtaza, okay. Says, can I repeat it again? Okay. How about Anthony? Okay, so Murtaza, just to keep it really easy, you can click anywhere on the table, say Control A, Control T for Tom, and say OK, and that's it. You've inserted your table. Now, when you scroll up and down, you can see that the column names replace B, C, and D. And the other piece is that when you insert any formula, for example, if you say amount, you open the square bracket, you say equal to, you open the square bracket and you double click amount, minus, you open the square bracket again and you remove the discount, and there you go, you got the net values. Okay. Right, so Anthony is done for the panes and Shravan is done as well. And Mike, is this working on 2010? So let me just quickly hear back from Mike and see if it's working for him on 2010. I think everyone else has practiced it. How about Arshdeep? Okay. Okay, Mike's catching up, inserting the tables. Okay. Oh, so Arshdeep, you're also on Excel 2010 like Mike. All right. Okay, that's perfect. So we're just going to wait for you folks to be comfortable. Right. So this is not exactly the same as, freezing rows and columns, Mike. What we're saying is that if you insert tables into Excel, you might not need to use the freeze panes options or freezing the rows and the columns anymore in a lot of situations if you insert tables. So we're looking at all of the different benefits of inserting tables into Excel. Funny thing is that Microsoft introduced this way back, in 2010, but it's still not being used, and Microsoft is doing its best to help people understand the benefits of inserting tables into Excel. The key thing that Microsoft's worried about is getting sued, so unless you define the table for them, they're not going to actually come and help you out, and Excel is not going to be very useful for you, right? Okay, so now let's go to last one called risk. So there's a last tab. The last tab is called risk. Before that, let me just see if I can quickly demo anything again. So Murtaza, were you able to practice this on your computer? Is there anything that you'd like me to show you again so far? And Mike, is there anything I could repeat while you're on your new computer now? Let me know if there's any tab gaps or more data that I could just show you once more. Okay, so Murtaza is fine. Okay. So Mike says start with the far formula tab. Okay. All right. So far formula, well, it's exactly what I just showed you right now, folks, which is if you've got a formula far away, you can use the square bracket, right? And you can actually calculate, for example, the net amount, right, is equal to nothing but the amount minus the discount, right? Or the amount minus the tax, for example. So that's the far formula. It's as simple as that. It just makes it far easier for you to do this without the need for freezing any particular row or column. Okay. So I'll go to risk now. And I'd encourage all of you to come to this tab called risk. Is everyone there on the risk tab? Please let me know once you're there. Okay, Anthony and Michael are there on the risk tab. How about everybody else? All right. Arshdeep, Kritika, Murtaza. All right. How about the others? Atanu, Shravan, Sai? Okay. Okay. Great. So my first question to you is, why should we be talking about risk and Excel, right? What's Excel got to do with risk? Okay, and why should we even talk about, operational risk in Excel? Anyone notice big screw ups because of Excel? What's the biggest screw up that you ever saw happening because of Excel? Has anyone seen errors, mistakes, wrong submissions? Come on, let's have everybody contributing to the discussion, folks. Okay, so Anthony says human errors. How about the others? Okay, Atanu says I did it, so that's fairly candid there. Okay, pasting value instead of formulas, right? Says Mike, absolutely, right? All right, so it's actually far more serious than that, right? So let me actually show you what goes on, right, in Excel. So we're going to open up Google, and all of you have Google opened up here. You can open up Google and you can say spreadsheet horror stories. Okay, so I'm going to actually type this here now, spreadsheet horror stories, and the moment you do that, you'll come to a link, and here's the link, right? I've sent it to everybody. Can everyone open this up, please? Spreadsheet horror stories. I know we'd all like to wish away, spreadsheets, but they're not going anywhere. And here's the link that talks about the European Spreadsheet Risk Interest Group. And look at, if I can just zoom into this a little bit more, right? So you can actually see what's going on here. There we go. So here you go. Someone was under pressure to approve, and there were no controls in the spreadsheet, and Basel norms, which are the banking norms in Europe, were actually impacted because the logic was not reviewed, and there was a manual copy paste. Manual copy paste of formulas results in huge errors, right? Researchers embarrassed after their students finds errors in the published white paper. The formula omits a lot of cells. Okay, that was the error there. But it gets more serious than that. So AstraZeneca, a lot of you may have heard of this company, and they have a midterm financial forecast error due to their Excel sheet, and this is on Reuters. And this is basically about confidential data that was embedded in a template. Because of this, their shares went down by 4% because the data got leaked, right? But it gets more serious than that. So this one is an interest calculation that's low by $400,000. And this is West Barber Municipality. But if you keep going, right, you'll notice this is $6 million. One Brad spreadsheet link, $6 million, $12,500 worth of auditing fees. What's the reason? A bad link. And the list just goes on and on and on. This is $12 million. It's regarding a property that was 1.26 billion taxable property, wrong spreadsheet. And look at the number of errors that are going on here. Isn't this stunning, right? And this is why we're going to now focus on the last pane, which is called operational risk. All right. So over here, I've got 4 months, right? I've got January, 10 million, February, 10 million revenue, March, 10 million, and April, 10 million revenue, right? It's just a little theoretical here. And as you can see, the average revenue for all of these 4 months Well, if all of them are 10 each, then the average of all of the 4 months is also $10 million. And the YTD revenue, YTD stands for year till date, which means from the beginning of the year till date today, okay? And assume that today is April, end of April. So this works out to 40, which is the sum of D8 to D11, okay? And it works out to 40. And then you've got the JFM total, which is January, February, and March. And as you can see, that works out to 30, right? Now, do you notice something a little different about the cell that has 30 in it compared to the other two cells? Does anyone notice anything a little different about this cell? Look carefully. I'm going to zoom in a little bit there. There we go. Could you respond in the chat box? Do you see anything different about the cell that has 30 in it? Okay, so we've got comments, right? There's an error, Bhavna says. Absolutely. There's an error there in the cell, right? And how do you notice the error? Okay, and over here, I'm going to actually draw the error for you. There you. So you can see the error right there on the top left corner of the cell. You can notice that there's a small bunny ear which is green in color, right? And that denotes that there's actually an error in that particular cell, okay? And we've got to actually resolve this error. Okay, Anthony also noticed the green mark. Thanks, Anthony. So how do you resolve this error? Well, you go over there and you click on that particular cell and the error comes up. You go and click on the drop down there next to the error and it's got some comments for you. It says this formula omits adjacent cells. So which adjacent cell is it referring to? When you click on the formula, it says sum of D8 to D10, right, which is D8 to D10. The adjacent cell that it refers to is April. So it's saying that, hey, look, your formula is omitting the month of April, and there was $10 million worth of revenue in April. So are you sure you want to omit the month of April? Well, now you apply your intelligence as a human being, and you say, well, it's JFM total. It's January, February, and March. So I probably don't need April in that total. So I go to the error and I say, ignore this error. Okay, so I click on ignore error and now I'm fine. Things are great. Well, now let me add another data. Let me add May. All right. So encourage everyone to do this at your end as well. You can actually ignore that error and then add the month of May. In May, you make it $20 million worth of revenue. And now let's see what happens. Okay. Now, as you can see, there are errors that pop up over here, right? The average actually does not include month of May, which is 20. So when I click on it, it says the formula omits the adjacent cells. Well, this time I actually wanted to include that cell. I wanted to include $20 million that we earned in May. So I click on update the formula to include the cells. And I do likewise over here. I update the YTD revenue, which is the year till date earnings, to update that formula to include the cells as well. And now, as you can see, I've got the right numbers. 60 is the total of 20 and 10 4 times, so that looks okay, and the right January, February, March total. So I'm now pretty happy here till I add the month of June. And now when I do that, again we've got the errors. So we can't keep fixing this, folks, right? Over and over again, right? So there's got to be a better way of doing this. And now here's where I come to the reason why we should use tables, okay? So have a look at this. I'm going to actually update this formula to include the cells. Okay, there you go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert a table. So I select all of this. I say Control A. I'm sorry, that won't work. Check it out. It selects the entire Excel sheet, right? So I click Control A. Oh, it works. There you go. And Control T. And I click OK. Now that I've inserted this table, let me add another month of July, and let's add $40 million worth of revenue in July. And as you can see, all of the formulas are working perfectly fine. There's no error whatsoever over here because I inserted the tables into Excel. Okay? Right. So I'd like everyone to practice this. You might want to insert the table, add May, June, and July, 20, 30, and 40, and then ignore the errors and see how this works at your end. Okay. Can you say done once you've practiced it at your end, please? And then I'm going to move ahead. Anthony's done. Okay. All right. So Anthony, Sai, Ashdeep, they're all done. All right. So let me just see. Jay is done as well. Okay. How about Bhavna, Mike, Murtaza? How you guys doing? Do you want me to show you this again? Kritika? And don't worry about it. Don't feel any pressure whatsoever. You can always practice after the class. Okay, Mike's working on it. Superb, Mike. Great. How about Kritika? Let me see if I can unmute you, Kritika, and just have a word with you. Hey, Kritika, how's it going at your end? I've unmuted you. Are you able to practice this? All right, so Mike's got it. Let me just see if I can unmute Mike over here. Right, so Mike, I've got you unmuted. So you were able to add the new data and the errors didn't crop up, right?
A row in the table, and the formula is automatically adjusted to a new row.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Right, so let me just see if I can share. Can I share your screen, Mike? Would that be okay if we all have a look at your screen?
Sure, sure.
All right.
I got two of them, so get the right one.
Yeah, I've got to catch the right mic. So let me see. I'm guessing the one that, yeah, so I'm hoping now I should have got the one that has 2010 on him. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Gotta click show my screen.
Yep, show my screen. Yep.
Got it.
Just double click show my screen and your screen should
show
pop up. Yep. Yep,
to,
we can see. Well, we can see a blue desktop. Yes, okay, we can see Excel as well. There you go. There we go.
Okay.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so let me see if I can also, hey, thanks a lot, Mike. Is there anyone else who's got this, you know, under control? Anyone who wants to share their screen? Okay, hey, thanks a lot, Mike. So I'm going to take back the controls there and make myself the presenter. Thanks a ton. All right, superb. So folks, now I'm going to show you something a little more interesting, okay? So here's what's happening, right? We've fixed these errors in these formulas. We've inserted a table. But then here's what happens, right? You close this Excel sheet and you go home, and the next day someone else comes and they decide to insert a formula called standard deviation. Boom. Now there's an error. As you can see, and first of all, please be totally comfortable if you don't know the formula for standard deviation. We're going to learn that on the 5th of November. But let me put this to you very simply, right? So till such point that we had data for only the months of January, February, and March, there was no deviation. In each and every month, we were making $10 million. So this formula was perfectly fine. As you can see, the zero does not have any error on it. But the moment we, ended up getting May, so January, February, March, April, May, and June, and we got our 20, 30, and $40 million. Now that there's actually a deviation, but the formula did not get updated to actually show you that deviation at that point in time. And as you can see, I need to go down on this and say update the formula to include all the cells. And now it actually does that for me. Okay. The moment I do that, I can add another month. Let's say I add July, And in July, let's say we had a great month and made $90 million. Wow. And this time when I go down, again, there's that error there, right? So I've got to say update this formula to include adjacent cells. But this kind of gets really hard to do, right, over a period of time. How many times are we actually going to do this? Isn't it? All right, so let's try August. Let's say 50. And let's say if it understood this time. Okay, now it understood. There you go. Now the challenge here is, as you can see, as this data grows, right, somewhere it's going to actually collide with the formula. So I'm going to paste this hypothetically 4 or 5 times, and you'll notice that it comes to a point where it's going to actually collide with that particular formula. So A, like we learned in Excel Standard Operating Procedures by Microsoft, you never want to put a formula below a table, because at some point, boom, you're going to lose the formula, right? Okay. But having said that, well, it's happened, it's perfectly fine. You want to next time put the formula over here and probably say, you know, STD EV, standard deviation, and double click that and select your months, right, and hit enter, and you'll get your standard deviation. Okay. Now the challenge is that we had 3 formulas that had errors in them. We fixed those errors only to discover that there's another formula that has errors in it, right? So we're done now, right? So this Excel sheet is clean. Do you think it's okay? Do you see any risk in this Excel sheet? How many people think the Excel sheet is clean? And how many people think that there could be risks lurking in this Excel sheet even now as we speak? So let's hear from everybody before we move anywhere else. Okay, so we've got some comments, right? Hey Mike, you might want to unmute yourself on the second computer that you're on. I'm sorry, you might want to mute yourself on the second computer that you're using right now. Okay, I've done it from my end, so we should be fine. Okay. So can everyone hear me loud and clear? Okay, so Bhavna's got a comment there. So Mike says yes. So Bhavna's got a comment there saying that maybe there are, you know, other errors in other places in the Excel sheet. Does anyone else agree with her? Does anyone else think that there could be other errors in the Excel sheet? Okay. So Murtaza says yes. Anthony says there's an average function in the Excel sheet and the risk sheet. Absolutely. Could there be other errors that could cause millions of dollars of risk for us in a company, a little bit like you see over here? Okay. Atanu says yes. All right. So let's figure out how we're going to do this, folks. So first up, Atanu had a question on how do you actually get the standard deviation. So you say equal to, and you say STD EV. Okay. That's Sam, Tom, Delta, Echo, Victory. STDEV. And then you get this formula over here in the drop down. So when you say equal to STDEV, you get this formula. You double click this and it says you want us to calculate the standard deviation for what data, and you select your entire data, right? And you close the bracket again. Okay. And there you go. So you get your standard deviation. So that's in response to Atanu's question. And now we're going to figure out how to never have errors in our Excel sheet. Thank you, Atanu. My pleasure. Okay, folks. So watch carefully now. There's an option in Excel to actually go on right on the top of Excel, and I'll show you where right now. Right on top, you see formulas over here, and I'm going to get into formulas. Okay. I'm going to click on formulas, and over there on the right hand side you see a feature called error checking. Now, is there anyone in this group that uses this feature called error checking? Could I get a yes if anyone uses this particular feature? Okay, so I've got a couple of comments. So Murtaza uses error checking, Atanu does not. Everybody else, please be candid. So Anthony says he does not, Bhavna does not. All right, so perfectly fine. Look, it's now onwards, we will always, as a policy, as a procedure, error check an Excel sheet before you work on it, right? And this is really, really important from Microsoft standpoint. It's actually a standard operating procedure. It's an SOP. Okay, so here's how you do it. All right, and let me get going now. You go right to the top, error checking. You click on the drop down, and you click on the first option that says error checking. And the moment you do that, you discover, okay, there are some more calculations in this Excel sheet. All right, on the right hand side in column T, in column S, T, and column V. And it says error in cell number T5. It says this formula omits the adjacent cells. The formula in this cell refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. Now, if you look carefully at this formula, it's actually a sum of D8 to D11. Okay, so if it's a summation of all of the months of revenue, I actually want to update the formula to include the new months, and I click update, and 50 becomes $1,700. And now it takes me to the next error in this Excel sheet automatically. I don't have to do anything at all. And it says, do you want to update this one as well? As it turns out, this is a summation formula, and the third one is also a summation formula. So I'll update this formula to include the cells, and now Excel says the error check is complete for this entire sheet. And you're done. You have a clean Excel sheet. Okay, and now you can begin to work on this Excel sheet. So as we proceed here onwards, a couple of things that we learned is let's insert tables. B, let's actually make sure we've got no errors in the Excel sheet. We've gone to formulas, we've gone to error checking, and made sure we got this message saying the error check has been completed for your entire data sheet. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you a short while to actually do this. You're going to go and click on formulas, get to error checking, and error check your entire sheet. Update all of these three formulas, and then we're going to proceed to our next sheet, which is exercise 2. So let's take the next couple of minutes and let me know once you're done. Take your time, and we'll move ahead to exercise 2, exercise 1B. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a question. How did you get the error message to the next error cell from Michael? So let me see if I can just go Control Z a couple of times and get to the point right. Here we go. Okay. So what I did, Michael, is, as you can see, there are all of these errors right here. In all of these 50s, you can see the errors at the top left corner of the cell, right? Okay, Atanu is done. All right, I'll wait for everybody else to confirm. So what I did was I went to formulas, I went to error checking, and I said error checking. And now I just keep clicking this button, update formula to include cells. So the moment I update this formula, it takes me automatically to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the error check is complete. Okay. So I hope that works now, Michael. Atanu is done. Jay Singh is done. How about Shravan? Arshdeep, Anthony, Kritika, Murtaza, Sai, Shravan. How's it going for you guys? Okay, Bhavana is done. Okay. Science done. Shravan done. Okay, fantastic. So let me, actually share the screen with Shravan. Would you be okay if I share your screen with the group? Right? So we're going to make you a presenter if you're okay, Shravan. All right, so I've got you unmuted, Shravan. Can you hear me? Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, Matthew.
Hey, thank you so much. So I hope it's okay if we have a look at your screen. Okay, so I'll make you the presenter. There you go. Coming over to Shravan now. All right. So great. So can everyone see Shravan's screen? Could you say yes in the chat box if everyone can see his screen? Okay. Right. All right. Fantastic. So Shravan, do you want to do Control Z a couple of times and show you show us all how you actually went about this? So it'll help people to have a look at another Excel sheet, right? Okay. There we go. Superb. Mm-hmm. Fantastico. All right. Hey, thank you so much, Shravan. Thanks for sharing your screen. I think it just makes it so much more lively when we get to see each other's screens. And so I'm going to take back the controls. Is that okay, Shravan? We can hear you, Shravan. You could speak up. Could I take the controls back?
Yeah, please take it back. Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks a ton. Thanks a ton. All right, here we go. I'll make myself the presenter. There we go. So this is done, and now we've learned a couple of things about Excel standard operating procedures. One is that we're going to insert tables for many benefits, right? Excel understands exactly where our data starts and ends and starts applying its intelligence to additional data that we receive from anywhere in the organization. We no longer need to freeze horizontal panes, vertical panes, or rows or columns if we use insert table feature. You also are able to, without any movement, apply formulas to your entire table, and you significantly lower your risk when you insert tables and conduct your error check, right? And these are known as Excel standard operating procedures that you're learning today, and they're something that you learn at Microsoft if you learn Excel. And we're going to now move ahead and open our second Excel sheet, which is called exercise 1B. Okay. So I'm going to open up exercise 1B now. There we go. Can everyone open up exercise 1B and say yes once you're done? Right, so all right, so I think everyone's got 1B opened. Let me see. Mike, Sai, Shravan, J, Atanu, Kritika, Arshdeep, and Anthony and Murtaza. Okay, fantastic. Everyone's got 1B open. All right, so I think there's one more person. So Bhavna, when you're sending your chat, there's an option for you to select from a drop down the entire audience. So then your chat box is actually going to go to the entire audience. So can you try that now, Bhavna? So currently you're sending it to the organizers and panelists only. If you select entire audience, everyone will be able to actually have a look at your comments. And Anuj, that applies for you as well. Okay. Could you try that? Could you say hi to the entire audience, Bhavna and Anuj? Okay. All right. So folks, we're at exactly the midway mark in the class today, 9 p.m. So we've got 1.5 hours more to go, and we've just covered 1.5 hours behind us. At this point, we usually take a break, right? And I leave it totally to my class to see if they want. Okay, Bhavna, so you need to say hi to everybody. So you need to select all entire audience and then say hi. Okay. So currently you're sending it to only me, which is the organizer. So just try that once more. There's an option for you to select all entire audience from the drop down. How about you, Anuj? Could you also try that? Okay. So folks, it's up to you to decide how much time you need on the break. All right. And Anuj, you're still sending the message to just me. Please select all entire audience. Okay. Atanu says he's not getting all entire audience. No, so Atanu, right now you're actually sending it to the entire audience. So everybody can see your entire audience comment, Atanu. You've selected it already. Okay. So Bhavna, there's a small tick mark and you can click on the tick mark. Okay. So, folks, we're at the midway mark, and I know that learning online can be a little intense. So, do you want to kind of take 5 minutes, a quick bio break, and pick up a quick drink of coffee or maybe a quick, cup of water and reconvene in exactly 5 minutes? Is that okay? All right. So, Atanu says 5 is okay. Mike says 5 is okay. All right, folks. So, please look at your watch. And we'll come back in exactly 5 minutes. Thank you. Hi, is everyone back? Can you say yes in the chat box if you're back? All right, so Bhavna, Jay, Anthony, Murtaza, Anuj. Okay, Anuj has sent me a private comment. Okay. Kritika, Atanu. All right, fantastic. Okay, Mike is back as well. All right, thank you. All right, folks, we're going to proceed. So now we're going to get into the second exercise, all right, exercise 1B, which is about consolidating multiple ranges of information that you receive. And Excel is really great at data manipulation, right? One of the best places, no matter if you have SAS, SAS, or if you've got Tableau, all of that is great. But for the data manipulation, you see a lot of analytics professionals coming back to Excel, right? And what we're going to do here is look at this data carefully. So this is the expense data for the year 2013, and you can see that at the bottom of your screen in the tab over here. It says expense data for 2013, 14, and 2015. And this is what the data looks like. So you've got the months, okay, over here, and you've got over here, you've got the different categories of expenses that we incurred in these months in the year 2013. Okay, so this particular sheet is all about the expenses incurred in the year 2013. Okay. Now, as you go ahead, it turns out that you have the same or near about the same expenses occurring in the year 2014. But as it turns out, it's January to December, but it's got a couple of months missing in middle. So you've got June, but you don't have July. You've got August, but you don't have September, October, November. A lot of data seems to be missing, right? Okay, so Shravan's got a question. So let me see if I can unmute Shravan. Just a quick second here. Yes, Shravan, please go ahead. I've unmuted you from my end. You need to unmute yourself from your end also, Shravan. You're on mute from your end right now. Shravan, if you're having trouble unmuting yourself from your end, could you please type out your question in the chat box? Okay. Could you type out your question in the chat box? I'd be happy to address it there if we're having a challenge unmuting you at your end. All right, so I'll wait for your question to pop up. Shravan, take your time. In the meanwhile, probably if you could just hold the question, I'm going to share something important here. So you've got all of the data from January to December, but a few months are missing in between. And if you notice here, you've got appliances to food in the year 2013, but in 2014, you've got appliances to food, including comics. So apparently you started incurring some expenses for comics, and that expense continued in the year 2015. In fact, as it turns out, people are reading a lot more comics than they were reading in 2014. The expense seems to have gone up. Now, when you're actually there in financial analytics and you need to compile data like this really fast, right? How would you do it? Okay. What would be some of the ways in which you can compile this data really fast, right? Any suggestions? Okay, so Shravan's got a comment here. Last spreadsheet we saw formulas assuming adjacent data as similar kind of data. Okay, yes, that's correct. Yes, the last sheet, adjacent data was similar kind of data. So is the question, what would happen if it was different kind of data? Is that the question, Shravan? So I'll wait for you to get back on that. Okay, okay. So Shravan's question is, the data in the adjacent cells in the last sheet was similar kind of data. What if it was different kind of data? So then in that case, you would not select update the formula to include adjacent cells. You would not select that option. So if I can just open up that particular Excel sheet again, right? So if, for example, the data, and it shouldn't normally happen in the normal course of action, but suppose, instead of April, May, suppose here you start writing Q1 and then it's got 20 here, right? Then you would not update these formulas to include that 20 because now it's Q1. So you would probably ignore, or you would say ignore the error, right? So you'd probably select ignore the error if it was not similar kind of data, right? Okay. Okay, what if it is just text? Okay, okay. So yet again, I mean, suppose it was just names, right? Let's say customer name. Okay. So Shravan says, what if this was customer name, and then over here it was Larry, right? Then the first question is, would you get the error? Now notice something really interesting happens, right? The moment you say customer name 2 and customer name 1, right? Larry and let's say Tom over here. So now you don't get the errors anymore over here, right? So you notice that Excel is able to figure out that this is actually text. And notice something interesting, right? If you expand this column, you'll notice the text goes to the left hand side and the numbers go to the right hand side automatically. I didn't have to make an effort. So the way it works is that Excel kind of gives you a visual cue if you've got text and if you've got numbers by putting the numbers on the right and the text on the left. So if ever you've got a narrow column like this and you want to figure out what's numbers and what's text, you can just expand it, right, like this. Okay, so by default, well, Excel actually, if you insert the table, Excel will assume that you're going to put similar data into the adjacent cell. So whenever you put similar data into the adjacent cell, Excel checks for it and lets you know if it is going to impact your formulas in the table. So if it is text, as you can see, Excel understands that it's not similar, but if it's numbers, Excel may get confused, right? So if I were to put Q1 and Q2 over here, then Excel would get confused about this and would definitely throw up some errors, right? Okay. All right, well, thanks for that question, Shravan. Okay, I'm going to go back to this particular sheet here. My pleasure, Shravan. All right, so folks, again, let's get back to this. Every day in your you're going to get a lot of data like this in a format that is known as a crosstab format. All right, crosstab format is what you see over here, right? It says crosstab data. Okay, so it's known as crosstab because, well, it's actually a report format, but it gets used a lot to actually save data in this format. Okay, however, I would not encourage you. It's not a good practice. Okay, and we'll tell you why Microsoft believes that this is not a good practice. But first of all, I'd like to know, how are you going to compile all this information? How are you going to show me the total expenses that I've incurred in 2013, 14, and 15? And I want to see exactly the same months, and I want to see all of the categories in which I've incurred the expense. How would you compile this information? Come on, come on, come on. So the folks that are, frequent Excel users, right? I'm sure you guys have some ideas, or you girls have some ideas. So what could be some of the ways in which I could try and compile this, efficiently? Okay. Okay, so guesses are good, folks. Absolutely no worries. I want all of you to guess. All right. So Ashdeep, Anthony, Anujatanu, Jay, Kritika, Murtaza, Sai, come on. You guys have got to guess, okay? Bhavna, Mike. Let's all guess, right? How would you actually compile this information really, really fast? Okay. So we've got a small chat box now. Let me see the comments I've got here. So Jay says, I usually update the headers with the year appended and consolidate the data in sheet 1. Okay. Okay. Now here's the complication, Jay, right? If you look at it, right, I've got another comment that has come. Okay, Mike says, what do you mean by compile? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so suppose, Mike, I'd like to see January to December. Okay, so here's the output that I desire. I desire January, February, and then, oh, by the way, I could just select both of these and together drag all the way till December, right? That's easy there. And I'd like all of the expense categories like so, okay? And now what I'd like you to do is actually compile all this information, show me that across all of these 3 years, how many dollars have I actually spent total on each one of these categories in these months in all of the 3 years. If I want to analyze 3 years worth of expenses and figure out how much have I spent on each of these categories every month, right? Total for all of the 3 years. So that's what I mean by compile. So Mike had a great question. I just answered that. Okay, here we go. So this is what I'm looking for. Okay, this is the output that I'm looking for, folks, because I want to understand where's my money going, right? Where am I spending all this money? Okay. Right. So look, I mean, there's a lot of ways of doing it, right? And this could be, if you're in HR, this could easily be the number of months, and this could be the number of employees that left your company, right, in different divisions. So, you know, this crosstab format gets used a lot across different functions, right? Okay, and this is what I'm looking at the end of. All right. So quickly, you know, what I want to share is that there's a very, very good way of doing this. Okay, what you don't want to do is what I did right now, which is that if you try and actually do this manually and you say January, Feb, and March all the way till December, right? You're actually going to take close to half an hour to compile this information. Okay, and I'm not kidding, right? So if I copy all of this here, and this is how it gets done in the industry. It's almost like people have so much time. Okay, here you go. Right, and then people will say equal to, and they're going to go to each one of these sheets and painfully select, you know, the month of January and the appliances expense, okay, and say plus, and go to the third one and hit enter. And then they may actually try and drag this, you know, but it may or may not work, okay, because what you'll notice is that over here your data is in cell number D5 to L10, and over here your data is actually in a different cell. It's from F4 all the way till cell N10, okay? And then the smart ones are going to write a macro, right? They'll say, okay, we've got this figured out. We're going to write a macro to compile this information. My point is, Excel can help you do this in a much, much shorter piece of time. If you write a macro, it may take you at least, you know, 1 hour. If you compile this manually, 30 minutes. But imagine if this was millions of rows of data, right? Then how would you do it? Okay, so without any further ado, I want to show you a feature of Excel which is called consolidating multiple ranges, and this is a compatibility view feature. Okay, and I don't want to confuse people with that. What I mean by a compatibility view is it's a great feature of Excel from one of the previous versions of Excel, and it exists in the new versions of Excel but only exists as a shortcut. Okay, so how do you access this shortcut? It's really easy. First you type Alt D, and then you also, after that you type P. So Alt D for Dallas and P for Poland. Okay, there you go. So that's how you access what I'm going to do right now, which is Alt D plus P. So let me do it for you. And watch what happens when I press Alt D. Okay, when I press Alt D, there's a small box that pops up on top that says continue typing the menu key sequence from an earlier version of Office, or press escape to cancel. So I press Alt D, and now I get this little box, and I press P for Poland, and the moment I do that, I get this particular box here, which is the pivot table and pivot chart wizard. Okay, so can everyone just press Alt D P and say yes if you're getting this in your version of Excel, please? Okay, so Alt D for Delhi and then P for Poland. Right. So Ashdeep got it, right? Mike got it. How about everybody else? Alt D and P for Poland, or D for Dallas, P for Poland. J, Sai, you got it? Okay. Okay, Bhavna got it as well. Okay, Kritika got it as well. Okay. Okay, how about Murtaza? Alt D, P. Did that work for you, Murtaza? Sai? Anthony? I'm just going to wait for responses from you guys. So Sai, Anthony, Murtaza, Shravan's got it. Okay, Sai's got it. Anthony and Murtaza, did you get it? Alt DP, or do you want to try that again? Okay. All right. So now focus, folks, on what I'm doing here, and you don't have to practice this along with me. You can give it a shot after I'm done. Okay. So when you come to Alt DP, it's actually the pivot table and pivot chart wizard, which a lot of you may have used in the past. But okay, Anuj also got it. Okay, fantastic. But you might have missed the third radio button that says multiple consolidation ranges. Okay, and I'm going to click on that now, the third radio button that says multiple consolidation ranges. Okay, so someone else just sent me a chat comment. Murtaza says done. Okay, thanks. Right, and it's over here, multiple consolidation ranges. Okay, so I'm going to put the radio button on that and I'm going to click next. You don't need to follow me right now, but this is really easy. So watch how it goes. Okay, I click next and it says create a single page field for me, and I click next, and now this little pop-up box comes over and there's a small little guy here, a red button at the corner of this particular text box called range. I click on the little guy and I select my first table all the way from cell number D5, the empty cell, till the end of my data, which is L10. Okay, and once I've selected it, I click on the little guy again and I say add, and now it's added my first set of data. All right, then I click on the little guy again and I go to expense data number 14, 2014, and I select the entire table including the empty cell F4 all the way till Nancy 10, N10. Okay, and I click on the little red button again and I say add that too. So it has now added the year 2014, and I've got one more year to add. So I click on the little guy, go to expense data 2015 and select this entire data and say add. Now, the moment I've done that, I've actually added all three of my data into the wizard in Excel, right? And now I click on the next button and it says, where do you want to put this pivot table report? So it's actually going to create a pivot table report for you. Do you want to put it in the existing sheet or do you want to put it into a new worksheet? So I'm going to select a new worksheet for this output and I click on the finish button and boom, there you go. So we've actually compiled this entire expense report for the year 2013, 2014, 2015 into one expense report. Now it's your turn. Everybody's got to do this. Okay, I will show you once more. Please have a closer look. Okay, and then you have to practice this. Now I'm going to actually do this in around 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to compile this massive information in just 1 minute. So Alt DP, and then I click on multiple consolidation ranges. I click next, create a single page field for me. That's great. I click next. I click on the little guy and select my first table including the blank cell. I say add. I click on the little guy again, go to the second tab, select my entire data, and I click on the little guy, I say add, and finally I go to the third cell, I select my entire data including the empty cell, I say add, and I say next, and new worksheet, finish, and boom, I'm there. Okay. So I want everybody to practice this now. Alt D plus P. Please compile your information, expense data of the last 3 years into one Excel sheet and say done once you've done it. All right. Take your time. I know you're doing this for the first time. So please be patient and go ahead and take the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes to compile your information. Okay. Please say done once you're done. All right.
Hello? Hello? Amit?
Yes, I can hear you, Atanu. I can hear you loud and clear.
Actually, I'm not
Can you
getting
click
it's
on?
all deep.
Sure, sure. So can you click on your data anywhere on top of your data? For example, click on yes, yes. Now on your keyboard, press Alt and keep the Alt button pressed down, and then press the D button. No, you might want to delete that. Just do a Control Z. So on your keyboard, just press no, don't click on Alt DP. On your keyboard, yes, there you go. And now press P for Poland. You got it. That's it. Now click on multiple. No. You want to go back. You want to click the back button, Atanu. Back. All right. All right. Click on multiple consolidation ranges. Yes, there you go. Click next. Okay. There you go. And click next. Right. Now click on the little red button. The little red button. There you go. Absolutely. And select your data. Yes. There you go. Click on the little red button again and click add. Fantastic. You have to select the empty cell as well. Yes, there you go. So isn't this fun, folks? We get to see each other working live. No, not the existing worksheet. Please go for the new worksheet. Yes, there you go. You got it. Fantastic. So round of applause for Atanu, right? Everybody can do that. Yes, you're all seeing Atanu. That's correct, Mike. All right, so Atanu, I'm going to make myself the presenter. Thank you so much. You can mute yourself from your end, Atanu. Okay, so folks, back to my screen now. And this is the view that you should have now. You should have a compiled, right, report of expenses that were incurred in the last 3 years for all of these categories. And you should have the grand totals as well, okay? Now I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, and this is now a pivot that Excel just compiled for you. So the idea here, folks, is that we don't need to work for Excel, right? Excel needs to work for us. And what Excel can do for us, if we know the right features in the matter of 1 minute or 45 seconds, right, we don't have to spend, the better part of our lives and our days compiling information for our bosses, for our companies. That's the hope, at least, okay? So now we'll do something a little more interesting. As you can see, you've got comics, which is very small, right? It's like $243, $46, $34. In fact, in July, apparently no one bought comics, which is really sad. And you've got expenses like appliances and food, which are larger magnitude expenses, right? And you've got salaries, which are actually huge. Okay, so when you try to actually draw a chart, right, you select this data, let's say like this, or let's say you select it like so, right? And you try to insert a traditional, chart. Let's say you try to insert a chart like this, right? Now, you're not getting very meaningful information on this chart about how, the expenses were in the month of January, February. You can't even figure out whether the appliances expense went up in a particular month of the year or down in a particular month of the year over the last 3 years. So it's just basically not very meaningful information. And March looks like a month where the whole expense spiked completely, right? So, you're just struggling to sort of use a traditional chart where one value like a comics or one variable like comics has a very small y-axis, and the other variables, if you look at it, for example, reimbursement of salaries, have huge numbers. So the y-axis on the chart becomes really big. So what y-axis am I talking about? So let me just draw this here for you. There we go. So suppose we've got a chart here, right? And just pardon my arts if it's not the greatest. Suppose you've got a chart here. And so this is your y-axis and this is your x-axis, as we all know, right? And suppose I'm trying to plot appliances Okay, so appliances, if this would be, 1000, okay, then appliances, if you look at it, is in and around 1000, okay, except that it spikes at one point to 97,000 in May, and then comes back to, 10,000, okay, and in June, and then in July it's 7,000, and then in August it's 16,000, and then September, December is just 654 and 345. So you see these huge variations in the y-axis of this particular expense appliance, right? It's even more drastic when you look at comics, because not only is comics, got variances, but the variances are very low. So if I were to draw you a different line for comics, let me pick a slightly different color. Maybe if I pick up orange, right? So comics would be languishing somewhere down here, right? And the chart is just not meaningful unless you have numbers that are very similar to each other. So this is why in 2010 they invented a new kind of feature called spark lines, and we're going to learn to do spark lines now. So I'm going to select column A and I'm going to insert a column. Okay, so I click on column A, I select the whole column, right click on it, and I insert another column. So I've got this new column that I've inserted over here. In this column I select cell numbers A5 to A10. Okay, so I just select the cells that are on the left hand side of my pivot table. Okay, these 6 cells over here, and I go to insert right on top over here, and I say insert line, okay, over here, and it says spark lines are mini charts that are placed in single cells, each representing a row of data in your selection. So what Excel is going to do is it's going to draw a spark line for each one of these rows. So there'll be a separate chart for appliances, a separate one for comics, food, reimbursement, salaries, and travel, and it'll get right there on the left hand side. So let me click on this, and it says select your data range. Okay, so I click on the little guy and I select my data range from C5, which is 1035, all the way till December travel, which is L10. Okay, I select just the data. I don't select the months. I don't select the names of the expenses. Okay, and then I say OK. And the moment I do that, on the left hand side you can see all of these lines that just got drawn. More importantly, on the top you can see sparkline tools, and you can see the kind of sparkline that got selected, and it says marker colors. That's really interesting, right? So I'm going to drop down on marker colors, and it says there are some high points and there are some low points. Now tell me this, in expense, right, in a company, if you're looking at expense, is expense, being high, is that a good thing, high expense, or is that a bad thing or something that you're trying to control if you're in a corporate environment? Okay, can I get a chat comment on that? Is expense being high a good thing or a bad thing? Are high expenses good or bad in a corporate environment? Okay, so I've got some comments. So obviously, Ashdeep says they're bad, right? And I've got some comments here as well. Bhavna says bad, right? Big problem, right? And Michael says bad as well. So what I'm going to do is, if it's bad, right, I go to marker color, and for high point, I select a red color, okay? The moment I do that, you can see the spark lines now. Wherever the expense is high, it's actually being shown to you in red color. Okay, and wherever the expenses are low, that's actually a good thing, so I'm going to choose green color for that. Okay, there you go. So I choose green color, and the moment I do that, now I've got these neat little spark lines on the left hand side of my table. I'm going to zoom into them. All right, and guess what, you don't even have to look at your data, right? If I ask you now in this spark line for appliances, right, let's look at this spark line here for appliances. Okay, if this is the appliances expenditure from the month of January, let's say this is January, all the way till the month of December, which by the way is the lowest appliance expenditures in December, it's a green color. Approximately which month of the year do you think we've got the highest expenditure? Can everyone guess? Right? So if this is Jan and this is December, approximately which month do you think we've got like the highest expenditure cumulative in appliances across all categories? You can see it in red color, right? Over here. Which month of the year do you think this is? Just take a guess. We don't have to be perfect about it. But yeah, I mean, so Atanu says May. How about everybody else? You've got an opinion, right? So let's go ahead and share it. Everybody? Okay, folks, right? So Anuj says May, Sai says June, Arshdeep says May. Absolutely. So the whole idea is, right, it's clearly somewhere around the month of May or June, middle of the year, where it looks like we have the highest appliances expenditure. How about reimbursements? So let's talk about reimbursements here, right? When is the highest expenditure in reimbursements? Which quarter of the year, right? Or which month of the year, okay? So November, right? So clearly everyone's filing for reimbursements or expensing their claims in November. Why do you think that's happening? Why do you think people are expensing their claims in November? What's going on? Why are so many people doing that in November in companies? What do you think is going on? What do you think might be going on? Okay, can anyone guess? So they've got, medical bills, they've probably got travel bills, and everyone's expensing it in. Okay, so someone says, Diwali time. What else do you think happens? Okay, so Mike says end of the year. There you go. So folks, then that's the right answer. Thanks a lot, Mike. So what happens is finance sends out this email to everybody saying, hey, you want to expense your claims right now in the month of November because we're closing the financial year in December. And that's why this might be spiking out there in reimbursements, right? And salaries, it seems to spike over here in the month of 31st of March. So why do you think salaries are spiking around the month of March? What's going on in March? Do you think this company pays their salary hikes or their merit increases in the month of 1st of January, or is it April? Okay, so we've got some comment. There you go. So Ashdeep, Atanu say, the increments are getting paid in April, right? Absolutely, Murtaza, start of the financial year. So this company seems to be giving their employees the salary hikes in the month of April, right? Okay, and there seems to be a lot of travel in the second quarter of the year. So why do you think travel might be spiking in the second quarter of the year? So if this is a company that runs on a January to a December, financial year, why do you think around the second quarter, a lot of people seem to be traveling across in this company? So we've got some responses. Business travels. Yep, new deals. Okay. But why is it happening in the second quarter? Okay. Any guesses? Okay. So Murtaza says start of the financial year. You're absolutely right. So what tends to happen, folks, in a lot of companies is around the second quarter, of the year, the travel budget opens up for people to make those travels. And typically you see a lot of people trying to travel, end of Q1, all the way till the beginning of Q3. But then by Q4, everyone's trying to control their costs. So you'll see very little travel that actually might be happening in the month of Q4, right? So look at how we're actually deriving so many inferences about the expenditure of this company just looking at the spark lines, right? And that's the feature that we just learned today. So now I'd like everybody to practice spark lines. I'm going to show you once more, right? So we become really, really comfortable with this feature. Okay, and you'll see how useful this is in a very short while. It's all over CNBC, and I'll show you how in a very short while. Okay, so here you go, and what you need to do is insert a column, select the rows right here, select the cells right next to appliances to travel, go to insert, go to spark line, okay, and select your data range minus the months and the categories. Don't select the grand totals, please. Just select the data from 1035 to 789 and click on OK, and you get your spark lines. And please use the high point red and please make the low point green. And there you go. You should have the spark lines just like me. So can we all practice this now, please? Let's take the next couple of minutes and practice this. I'm going to mute myself. Okay, so I hope I'm audible now. Hope everyone can hear me. Okay, great. So folks, now we'll talk about surface charting. The first kind of surface charting is basically sparklines. The idea behind surface charting is that you want to draw charts on the surface of your data as opposed to drawing them somewhere else. And the advantage that you gain from that is that you can see your data as well as your charts right there together, on the surface of your data. Another kind of surface chart that you can draw is called conditional formatting, and it's right here on top of your screen, right? So over here you see conditional formatting, and I don't know how many of you have had a chance to use this particular feature. This is also a surface charting feature that you can use to your benefit in Excel. Okay, so we're going to use conditional formatting now. Now let's look at January expenses 1035. Let's look at this expense as a fraction of the total expenditure that I've incurred in January. Okay, so the total expenditure in January across all 3 years is 6,157. And the expenditure on appliances is 1,035. So if I want to see what percentage of 6,157 is 1,035, how would I do it? Well, the way you typically do it is you'd say equal to, and you'd say 1035 divided by, and then click on 6157 and press enter, and you'd probably convert this into a percentage, right? And so when you hit percentage, it says around 17%. Now similarly, you would do it again for 243, right? And this is how people typically, kind of operate, right? Now the whole challenge with this is that it's not an efficient use of Excel. There's a better way of doing it, right? And whenever you want to know what might be a better way of doing it, try to see if you can right click, right? If it's a local thing that you're trying to solve for. So over here, if I right click, there's an option somewhere here that says show values as. And in that you see percentage of, and there's percentage of grand total, column total, row total. As it so happens, I'm looking for the percentage of the January expenses, and January is a column, so I'll select percentage of column total. And the moment I do that, the entire table gets converted into percentages, right? That's how easy it is, okay? So all I did was, again, just to reiterate, I right clicked and I said show values as percentage of column total, which in this case is a column is January, and I got all of these. Now, the moment I go to conditional formatting, all right, watch what happens now, and I select data bars, okay, and I'll choose a gradient fill like so, or I can even choose a heat map like so, okay, and it makes 16.81% green in color, which is not that impressive, except that there's a little guy over here. There's something that pops up, and when I click on it, I say all cells showing sum of value values, and there you go, boom. So it immediately draws for you, the surface chart, and what this surface chart tells you is that which is the highest or which is the lowest expenditure in that particular month, right? And you can choose a different kind of surface chart. So I could pick, let's say, data bars, okay, and I could make this like this, right? Let me just disable this, and I say data bars, and I select a data bar, and there you go. Now look at the beauty of this. It's really easy now for me to look at the month of January. So if you look at this over here in January, it's really easy for me to tell which expenditure is highest in the month of January, right? So when I look at all of these expenditures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which one is clearly the highest in the month of January in all of these categories? Can you tell me? Is it appliances, comics, food, reimbursement, salaries? Which one's the highest in January? Quickly in the chat box. Come on, folks. Let's get your responses. Okay, there you go. So clearly everyone says travel, right? It's so easy to see because travel is clearly the biggest bar when you look vertically, right? It's so easy, right? Now if I ask you horizontally, if I were to ask you of all the expenses that you see here horizontally in this table, right, which expense seems to be the highest in the month of, in the last quarter, right, which is in the months of July, August, and September, right? which expenditure is the highest in the months of July, August, and September? Okay, so I've got a response on chat here. Reimbursement says Michael and Jay Singh. How about everybody else? Right? So clearly in July, August, September, you can see the blue bars here, right? And it's obvious that reimbursements is really big from July onwards all the way through till the month of December, isn't it? So this becomes so much easier to visually inspect your data and draw some inferences about your data. And when I look at the grand total now of all of the months, right, and this particular column here, it's obvious to us that salaries is kind of the highest expenditure, followed by reimbursements. So employee related expenses. Now this tells you why all the companies are trying to reduce their headcount, is because they're trying to control costs such as salaries and reimbursements, while appliances is at number 3, right? So this would probably be the third highest expense. And then you've got travel, and you've got food, right? Those are the other categories that seem to be somewhat significant as a total. Okay, so great. So now what I need you to do is actually, I'll go back to where I was. Here we go. So click on January, right click, show the values as a percentage of your column total, and then use conditional formatting to actually draw the data bars. And choose the little guy here, click on the little guy and say all cells showing sum of values, like this. And this is the output that I require now from all of you. So please go ahead and practice now. Please say done once you're done. Hey folks, let me know if you want me to repeat anything whatsoever. I'm more than happy to do it. Murtaza, Anthony, folks, how's it going? Atanu. All right, so Murtaza is done. Superb. So let's look at some of the other folks. Jay is done as well. Okay, anyone who's had a challenge with this, can I show this again? Atanu is done as well. Mike's done. All right. So that's great. So Murtaza, would it be okay if I share your screen? So I'll just right click and make you the presenter, Murtaza. Can you click on show screen, please, Murtaza? Shravan is done as well. Superb. Thank you, Shravan. And Sairam is done as well. So Murtaza, can you please click on show screen? I have actually made you the presenter right now. All right, so we've got a comment there. Kritika is done as well. Okay, so maybe we're facing a little bit of a challenge there with the share screen option. So I'll probably make myself the presenter again. All right, folks. Right, so thank you so much, everybody. I know this is the first class and we're doing a lot of stuff together, I know. Now, very quickly, I just want to show you something that's really important, okay? So the way you want to store data is not in a format like this crosstab format, right? This is a report format, okay? This is not a good way to store data. So my whole point is, if you're actually storing data, right? If you're keeping data on your computer, and I know a lot of time IT systems don't necessarily have data in the format that you want it, or in analytics sometimes you keep regularly compiling data from different sources and you store it in what we call a data dictionary, right? So it's a data dictionary that you keep on your desktop or on your laptop so that you can readily query that particular data dictionary. This is not a great format to store your data. Okay, so this is a report format, and this makes a lot of sense if your manager likes to see a report like this every quarter, okay? But the idea is not that you store the data in the report format. That's not the idea. the data should be stored in a simple tabular format. So now I want you to understand what is good data and what is bad data, right? And the simplest way that I can put this to you is that if you can actually insert a table in a meaningful way in Excel, then that data is actually good data, right? So suppose I select this data here and I can insert my table and it makes a lot of sense. That's good data. So what is the right way to store this data? So as you can see here, you have columns, okay, January to August. Are these column headers or is this also data? Is month a data? My question to you is, are the months also data? Yes or no? Right, so Atanu says yes, that this is also data. So the header should not be January, February, March. The header should be month, like this, right? Expense month, okay? Like this. And then let me ask you something else. So over here, someone put 2013 in the name of the tab, right? So is this a good practice? Let me ask you, is 2013 data? So we've got a response, right? So Mike says 2013 is data. Ashdeep says so too, right? Okay. Atanu says no. Well, guess what? 2013 is the year. So the year is also data, right? So this also needs to be a column name, 2013. And then you add 2014 and 2015. That's when you can make a pivot of this entire table, right? And you'll notice that there's missing data as well. So when you look at it, you don't know whether this amount is in US dollars or whether it is in Indian rupees or whether it's in the Baht or the Dubai dirham, right? So what should be the name of the header for this particular data? Okay, it should be currency, isn't it? So you need currency as well. There you go. Okay, and you also then need the other two data that you see here, which is amount, and you add that here, expense amount, and then your expense category, right? These are different categories. This is categorical data, as we call it in analytics. So you have to add the amount and category. So when you do that, this is now the way that you should actually store this particular data. And you can hit a Control A and you can hit a Control T and insert your table. Now the benefits of storing data in this way is that you can create a pivot table out of this data and do exactly what you want with that particular pivot table. So I can go to Insert, I can go to Pivot Table, right, and I can actually create my pivot and I can then start using my data. For example, I can put some of the expenses in a particular month, in a particular category, and I can actually now start using this data to my advantage. But that is not possible if I try to create a pivot out of this data here. Okay? So this is how you'd like to store your data. So some rules around storing data, very simple, right? Every cell should have one piece of data. One cell should have one piece of data. So let me just put it here. One cell equal to one data. Now the problem with this particular format here is one cell actually denotes two data. It denotes three data, in fact. It denotes 345, which is the amount. It denotes the month, January. It denotes the category appliances. It also denotes the currency. So this cell 345 is actually connected to 4 different kinds of data. So you need to break that up and stick with a simple rule that I'm going to leave you with today, which is one cell needs to have one data. Okay? Does that make sense? Can everyone remember that? One cell, one data? I can get chat comments from everyone, please. Okay? Okay. Look, if we remember this, thanks Bhavna, Jay, thanks a lot. If we remember this, folks, we're never going to get in trouble with our data, right? One cell should have one data. Trust you me, you can query exactly what you want now from this data. Okay? All right, fantastic. So we can close this exercise, okay, and we can open up the next exercise. So before that, I want you to take to one slide, okay, which is really important. And let me see if I can actually maybe choose a slightly different color here. Maybe make this white in color and make this a little more apparent and increase my font size here. There we go. Okay. So I love to have the theory after the practice. Okay, so now here's the theory. There we go. So we learned to zoom out and drag, okay, which is features zoom and drag to our benefit by doing it together. And when we zoomed out and we dragged, it was much faster, right? We also learned that as a human being, we know how to zoom and we know how to drag, but we don't zoom out and drag together, because in our minds we don't make a connection between zooming out being a better way to drag, right? We also learned that a spreadsheet is not a table. Adding formatting is not a table either. So very quickly, what I mean by this is, if I say that I'm actually going to go to an Excel sheet, and if I go to this Excel sheet here, for example, and if I select all of this and I right click and I draw, a table, right? Or if I go here and select a border and I choose all borders, this is not a table yet, okay? Just because I've painted, this with borders doesn't mean it's a table. And if I actually even put colors into it, it still doesn't mean that it's a table, right? So the whole idea is that for this to be counted as a table, you need to insert a table. That's the only way that this is going to count for a table. So how do I know the difference whether I'm in a table or not? Because this looks like a table, but the difference is that if I go into a real table, okay, so let me say Control A, Control T, and I say OK. If I go into a real table, right on top, I can see table tools. It appears right on top of my computer. I'll show you where. Over here, on top of the computer, right on top of my screen, you can see table tools, right? This tells me that I'm actually inside a table. That's the only way of knowing that you're inside a table. Even if I remove all of the formatting and the colors, if I click on the table, I get the table tools, it means I'm inside a table. But if I go to this and I click on the table here, the table tools does not appear on top of my screen. Okay, so which means this is not a table. Excel will not treat this as a table. It will not help you at all. Okay, so super cool. So I'll go back to my presentation again. There we go. So, all right. And why do you insert tables? You insert tables because Excel needs to know where to stop. It gives you filters, colors, formatting. You've got to make sure that data is in columns. It has a header. Don't merge any formulas. Don't merge any headers at all. That doesn't help. Keep them simple. No formulas in the header. And that's tabular data, right? Good data is anything that you can convert into a table in a meaningful way, right? And one cell should have one data. Okay, that's it. There you go. So that's good data. Thank you, folks. Now I'll go to my next important exercise, which is fill. All right. So let me get back to my Excel sheet and open up the third. So we've done exercise 1A and 1B. Now I'm going to open up exercise 2. All right. And exercise 2 is about autofill and flash fill. Can everyone open exercise 2 and say yes once you're done? Mike's got it open. Ashdeep, Shravan, thank you. Everyone's got it open. How about Murtaza? Okay, you've got it open as well. Okay. Everybody else? How about everybody else? Can you please confirm that you've got this open? Jai Singh, Kritika, okay. Everyone's got it open. Sairam, all right, fantastic. Let's all move together, folks, as a pack, right? This is going to be really exciting. All right, so first of all, I'll show you the really easy bit, which is autofill. And you probably know autofill very well. It's just that you may or may not have heard that it is called autofill, okay? So now autofill, the way it works is you often see people physically fill out stuff like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's a little crazy because if you actually just drag, right, if you type 1, 2, 3, or even if you just type 1 and 2, and then you drag this, right, it's going to figure out what you want and it's going to make it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Excel does that for you. Not only that, you see a lot of people type out stuff like Monday, Tuesday, and the whole deal is if you just say Monday and you drag it, Excel is going to populate the whole thing, right? Not only that, Excel understands that after Sunday it has to go back to Monday. It understands abbreviations. It understands abbreviations for months as well. It even understands the full month. Okay. And now let's drag A and see what happens there. Well, now Excel doesn't understand that. Okay. So let's see if we give it a B. Will it begin to understand what we're hinting at? Maybe not. All right, let's see if we can give it a Charlie, A, B, C. Okay, maybe not. So as it turns out, this brings you to a really important point. Excel understands numbers better than Excel understands alphabets or letters, right? Months are an exception. Months, quarters, days are an exception because you use that a lot in numerical data or in reporting. But with the exception of that, if you're trying to do alphabetical stuff using autofill, it actually does not work. Okay, so that's something that we want to keep in our minds. However, if I make it A1, now Excel understands that I want B1, B2, B3. So Excel understands B1 will be followed by B2, B3, B4, B5. But now look at this, right? Q1 is followed by Q2, Q3, Q4. But beyond Q4, it goes back to Q1. So Excel knows that very often you're going to prepare reports like this. Let me show you Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then you'll go back to Q1, okay, and Q2, Q3, right? And probably over here, you're going to have the years, maybe 2013 and 2014 and 2015, and you want to see how it went for all of the quarters in these years, right? And this is for one business unit. Let's merge this out a little bit here, and this could be for a particular business unit, right? So if I merge this and I merge this, you could say that this one is for the tractors and maybe this one is for the trucks. Okay, there you go. And so this would be kind of like a report format that you would prepare. So Excel understands that, and that's why it ends, Q4 and then it goes back to Q1 again. And similarly for QTR1, okay, Excel understands that too. Now the interesting thing is if you give Excel an interval, for example 5.75, Excel understands that you want an interval of 0.25 and it will do that for you as well. You don't need to do any maths, you don't need to do any formulas whatsoever. Now Keanu Reeves makes Matrix 1, and by the way Keanu Reeves is 51 years old, which surprises me. And well, there you go, Matrix 2, 3, 4 as well. Okay, alright. So the interesting bit here, right, is this, okay? Suppose I'd like this formula to go all the way till this cell over here. And I'm going to color this cell for you in a different color, right? I want the formula to go down all the way till this cell. The thing is that if I double click on the formula, it'll go all the way till 12, okay? Because it notices the adjacent cells and it notices that there's data in the adjacent cells and it stops here at 12. But suppose I don't want it to stop at 12, I want it to stop here at the highlighted cell. So all I need to do is I need to put a stopper, and a stopper is a character. So I can put P, for example, or I could put, U. Now the moment I put the character, now when I double click, it will go only till above the character and it will go and stop at the character. Can everyone practice this, please? Can you type out 5.75 and then put a U in cell number L9 and then double and see what happens. It goes only till that point. It doesn't go beyond that point. Okay. All right. So everyone quickly practice this and let me know that it worked for you, right? And this is useful because many times you want a formula to go to a particular place in your Excel sheet, but not go beyond that. So 5.5, 5.75. And put a character somewhere and select these two cells and double click at the corner and watch it stop right there above the character. Just say done once you practice this, please, so I know and I can move ahead. All right, so Ashdeep, Jay, Anthony. Okay. All right, folks, let's keep the momentum going. I know, we're in the last 15 minutes of the class, but let's keep the momentum going, everybody. Can you please say yes once you practice this? Okay. Just this last one here. Okay. And we need to go ahead to the next most important function called flash fill. Okay, Kritika is done. How about everybody else? Right, so Ashdeep is done as well. Shravan is done. All right, fantastic. Jay. Okay, so Mike says 2010 it's not working. Okay, okay. So Murtaza says, can you do it again? Okay, okay, got it, Mike. I completely understand. All right, so Murtaza, let me just see a couple of more comments. It's done for Atanu and Bhavna. It's done for Bhavna. Okay, so Murtaza, here we go. Really easy. This is where I was. Now suppose I say 5.75, okay, and if I select both the cells and I double click on the corner, it will go all the way till the bottom of this in this particular table. But if I wanted to stop somewhere in the middle, then what I want to do is I want to put a stopper just below that point. So if I put a stopper here, P, and I say 5.75, and now I select these two cells and I double click, it will stop right above the stopper. Okay. And this is very useful when you've got a lot of rows of data. All right, folks, so we'll get into now the most exciting part of today's class. So buckle up while we learn to use flash fill. Now, quick thing here, flash fill only works in Excel 2013. Okay, so the folks that have Excel 2010, you may not see flash fill work right now. It only works in Excel 2013. It works in 2016, okay, and it's the result of a pattern matching and machine learning algorithm that was written by someone who worked with Microsoft for 4 years and researched this in a university. So if I could show you that right in a very short while, over here you'll see the gentleman who wrote this particular function, Sumit, and he did his PhD from University of Berkeley. And his computer sciences is of course is from India, and he wrote this white paper which goes into many pages about automating string processing in spreadsheets, and basically intelligently understands a lot of advanced mathematics here which you don't have to worry about if you look at all of this, right? It understands what you want as an output and it gives you that output, as simple as that. It tries to figure out what you're looking for and you teach it and it teaches you back, it gives you the output that you're looking for. So now over here, as you can see, I've got a lot of pet shops, right? And I've got the addresses of the pet shops, and the address has a zip code in it. So zip code here is 560001, which is a pin code or a zip code. So I type 560001, okay? Suppose I want to pull out this zip code, right? It's really hard to do because I've got to keep typing all of these one by one, and it's very painful, right? But you see people doing this a lot. They say 560008 and they actually type out these things manually, right? But there's a very good way of doing this now in Excel 2013. Suppose I type 560001, okay, and I drag this right till the bottom of the table. And when I leave it, whoops, it didn't work, right? Because it looks like it just didn't understand that I need 560008 and 010, right? And this is important because I need the zip codes to map them in on the map of the earth, right? I'm going to draw this in Power Maps. But if I go to the bottom, right, if I do this again, right, let's just see if I can do this again, 560001, right? And I go right till the bottom of the Excel sheet. A small button appears over here, right? And it says autofill options. And when I click on that, there's an option called flash fill right at the bottom, okay? Now no one really looks at this, no one cares about this, but guess what happens when I click flash fill? There you go. Boom. Excel now understands I was looking for the zip code and it pulls out the zip codes from this entire sheet for you. Isn't that fantastic? Right, folks? Isn't that absolutely fantastic that Excel can understand what you're looking for and give you that output, right? And that's the function, the power of flash fill in Excel, right? So Anuj says yes, Ashdeep says yo, absolutely, and Mike says boom, right? So there you go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little more complex examples here. I'm going to pull out the house number, okay? There you go. So I'm going to say NO.35 and I'm teaching Excel what I want. Now watch carefully what happens. I say capital N dot 18, and look what happens. Excel gave me a suggestion. Okay, for a second it showed me that do you want this output, but I ignored Excel. Okay, so if I drag this right till the bottom, these two, and I say flash fill, boom, I pull out all of the house numbers at one shot. There you go. Okay. Can everyone practice this? Those that have Excel 2013, right? Can you practice this? Okay, so I'll give you a few more examples, right, of how useful this is. Okay. So I think I've got some responses. New number was the same as number. Okay, let me just go back with period. Okay. Yes, new number was the same as number with period, says Mike. Okay, so no.35, no.18, no.394. Yeah, well, yeah, Mike. So let me just unmute you there and just see what you meant by that, Mike. I didn't completely understand that. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Mike, I've got you unmuted. So what were you trying to say, Mike? Okay, so for some reason, Mike, I can't seem to hear you on the other computer that you're on. The last one we were able to hear you. Okay. All right. So Atanu's done it. Anuj. Yes. Please go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my phone was on mute. In rows 9 and 10, you left off the period of the NO, but it still knew what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, that's a fantastic observation there, right? So it's a pattern matching algorithm. It's got intelligence. So even though I left out the period, in rows 9 and 10, it picked out what I wanted. Absolutely right. That's a great observation, Mike. Thanks a lot. Okay, so everyone's practiced this, and I'm going to show you, some more examples of how flash fill works, right? And it's a fantastic function, right? How to select two rows, says Sai Ram. Okay. Bhavna is done already. So Sai Ram, how to select two rows? I'm not completely clear what you meant by that, Sai Ram. Okay, let me see if I can unmute you. Yes. Sai Ram, can you speak up now? Yes, Sai Ram, you can speak now.
Hey.
Yeah.
So you're selecting two cells and dragging it, right? So should I press Control and select both the cells?
Well, you could just use the mouse, right? So you could just use the mouse and select the two cells. Or if you press Control, you just can use the mouse and select two cells, right? So,
okay, just drag
so
it.
like
okay,
NO35, NO18, and then drag it to the bottom and use flash fill. Okay?
Alright, thanks.
Okay, fantastic. You can mute yourself. Now, let me show you all the uses of flash fill, and you guys can follow me very quickly. The first is in this text, right? So, Sai, you can unmute yourself from your end, or shall I do it from here? Okay, there you go. So, in this example over here, you can see that you can pull out stuff from the sheet. So, if you type India and India again, now guess what happens when I press B for Bangladesh? There you go. So it gives me a suggestion, okay, and that is this the output that you're looking for? And if I press the enter button at this point, it will automatically populate the entire table for me. I don't have to do a thing, okay? And if I say capitals, right, if I say Delhi, and if over here I say Mumbai, there you go. The moment I type MUM, it gives me a suggestion, and it shows me New York, Dallas, Seattle. I just have to press enter. That's it. That's the magic, right? That's flash fill for you, okay? Otherwise, if I don't want the suggestion, I can actually drag all the way till the bottom and then click on the little guy, right, and select flash fill. That works like magic as well. Okay. Not only that, now I'll get to variable space removal. So very often you've got variable spaces in your data, and you want to remove the spaces. So if you give Excel the output, you say gaps in a sentence. So this is very new, folks. You're actually teaching Excel. That's what you're doing, right? So now when I drag this to the bottom and I say flash fill, boom, it does this all for you. There you go. It removes all the variable gaps in the sentence. So you can achieve variable, space removal. You can actually separate out different data inside a single cell, and you can make it one data per cell, okay, which is what in table. You can also use it for abbreviations. So I've got some names here. I've got John Arnold, I've got Mary Cynthia, and if I say JC, because I want to address people as that, okay, or MC over here, and when I actually drag this to the bottom of the cell, boom, right? It understands and it gives you the abbreviations, right? So Mike says, wow, right? And this is like, I would say, folks, that the single most important reason why you want, Excel 2013 and above, professional edition, is for flash fill. Many of my learners have come back and just thanked me profusely for this, right? I mean, it's amazing. Now look at concatenation, okay? So how do you concatenate? Well, it's really easy. You just type, concatenation is adding the names, right? So suppose I've got Roseanne Sargent and I want to concatenate this for myself. I want to add these two names up and put it on an invitation that I want to send to Roseanne. So ROZANNE and SARGENT, Roseanne Sargent. There you go. Now watch what happens, okay? And I say flash fill. Boom. It does it for you. It concatenates stuff for you. Okay, so applause, says Mike DeWitt is really excited. Mike's really excited over there. So John Arnold should be JA. So abbreviations, let me go back to, oh yes, absolutely. So it should be JA. There you go, right? Flash fill, there you go. Okay. So I can insert one more cell and probably type in a J here and drag it all the way to the bottom. Should work perfectly fine now. It works like a charm every time. There we go. All right. So there are more complex uses of flash fill, which I will show you. Can everyone, have some people been able to practice some of these? Okay. Can you say yes if you practice some of these? Okay. J, okay. Atanu will practice later. Sai, yes. Okay, how about the others? How about everybody else? Just practice one or two of them. Have you practiced flash fill at least on any one of these examples before I go ahead? Yep, it saves a lot of work, Mike says, with the substring function. Murtaza says he'll practice this later. Anthony will practice later. Unable to find Excel in Mac. Okay, Mac can be a challenge, Anthony, right? So a Mac may not have flash fill. Okay, so Bhavna says yes. Okay. All right, so let me now show you folks. Feel free to email me whatever you've practiced at the end of the class is superb. Now I'll show you a real application of flash fill, okay? Now over here you've got a credit card statement, and in this credit card statement, if you look below, you've got the amount and you have the description of where the expenses have been incurred, right? And you've got the date on which the expenses got incurred, right? Okay, the whole challenge is when you look at this, I told you that you should have one data per cell, but this cell has a data called 120 CR, okay? So assume this to be, the amount I've spent on my credit card. If it's 627 and this one's 100 CR, what do you think CR is in this credit card report? If this is a expenditure, right, $627 or $306, what's CR? What does CR stand for? Okay, so credit, absolutely, you got it right. So these are actually credit transactions, right? Now the problem is this is more than one data in one cell. So it is a number, which is the amount. It is also a credit transaction. So how do I separate this out? Now this is where flash fill will come to your rescue. So if you say new amount, okay, and now I type out 627, watch what happens now, and here I type out 100, all right, and I drag this to the bottom, and what I'm saying is all I want is the number. I don't want the text that goes along with it, and I say flash fill, boom, you pull out all of your numbers. Now More than that, there's another piece of data that I want, which is, this is actually, if this is a credit transaction, right, 100, then 627, what kind of transaction is that? So if 100 is a credit transaction, what kind of transaction is 627? You got it. So it's a debit transaction. Now I can actually use flash fill to add that information, so it can actually fill missing values. So this is type of transaction, okay, right? And I say here DR, which is debit, and I say here CR, which is credit, and I say here to Excel, I want DR, this is a debit transaction. Now the moment I teach Excel that this is what I want you to insert debit as well, okay? Then I can actually drag it to the bottom and do flash fill, and boom. Now Excel has figured out the missing values in your data. So you can even use flash fill to fill out your missing values, okay? Now that I've got the missing values, I also see currency is fairly easy. All right, so I say, CURRENCY, and I say, for example, here INR, Indian rupees. Okay, and I drag this to the bottom. I don't need flash fill on this one. Now I've been able to actually clean up my data, but it gets even better. Okay, so I'm going to insert another column here, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull out the cities in the planet where I made these expenses. So I say Delhi, I say Bangalore, okay, and I'm going to drag this all the way to the bottom, okay, and then I'm going to leave it and see if I can flash fill this. Okay, so I flash fill this. Looks like it's pulled out all of the cities, right? So it's pulled out Delhi, Bangalore, Shimoga, Tumkur, right? Over here there's a mistake. It says Kazozazi, which is not the city. The city is actually Bangalore. So not only that, I can teach Excel again that you've made a mistake. So I click here, I say Bangalore, okay, and I press enter. The moment I press enter, you see some electricity pass through the cell. It kind of tries to understand what's going on, right, and tries to fix this for me, right? And every time I do that, I fix it. I teach Excel by clicking 2 or 3 times. I fix all the mistakes, and it pulls out every city, including Hampi, which is a historical city of ruins, Udupi. It pulls out Coimbatore, Chennai. We're done. We're absolutely done with this exercise. And so now we can say city here. So what's the advantage of all of this? Now I've got clean data that I can go and paste into another cell and start analyzing my data, right? Okay, so I can copy this, I can go paste it in a new cell, and this is the exercise I want all of you to submit to me once you've had the chance to practice it. If you've not, whatever you've practiced so far today, please feel free to mail it across to me. Okay, so I'm going to delete everything else, and I'm just going to stay. Now I've got data which is actually a table. So Control A, Control T, and I say I insert a table. Now I'm a happy man, right? One cell, one data using flash fill. Okay, so how was this? People found this particular feature useful? Yes, flash fill. Is everyone going to practice flash fill? Awesome. So hey, thanks everybody. Thanks Kritika, Anthony, Atanu, right? Thanks everybody. And now, as you can notice, now that we've got this, I hope the rest of you also found flash fill interesting. But now that you've got this data, right, you can actually create a pivot out of it, like a pivot chart. And in a pivot chart, I could actually analyze where am I actually making the maximum, transactions, right? And what are the different kind of transactions I'm making? So I can look at my debit and credit transactions, the grand totals. I can clearly understand that I'm earning in Bangalore and spending in the rest of the country. Look at the amounts where I'm spending, right? All of this becomes very, very good. Okay, so Mike's got a nice little post that he wants to share with the whole group. Good blog post on flash fill. So Mike's actually got this copied already. Let me share this with the whole group. Did everyone get this blog that Mike just shared? I'm going to reshare it. I'm going to retweet. Okay, so there you go. Right. Hey, thanks a bunch, Mike. I'm going to see if I can email this out to everyone. Okay, and I'll take that up. I'll just paste that here and email that to everybody. All right, folks. So thank you so much. I think we'll pause here today. We're 5 minutes over time, and I want to thank each one of you for your patience. Right, we've gone till exercise 2. We've got more exercises to cover. All right. So I wanted to do a quick poll. Okay, and I just wanted to check: would you be willing to have a class on the 29th, which is Saturday? And the reason I ask is that Sunday is a huge festival, Diwali. But how about Saturday 29th evening? Would people be okay to have a class on Saturday 29th? Um, I just wanted to check with the group. Okay, so Atanu says no, he's traveling. Okay. Okay, how about others? I know that it's a huge festival, but I just thought, okay, Bhavna says no. All right, okay, I get the message. Okay, Anthony says yes, Sai says yes, Kritika says no. Okay, so folks, I'll stick to the original plan. It's perfectly fine. I think we'll have the next class, on the 5th of November, and we will wrap up the accelerator on the 18th of December, which is just before Christmas. Okay, so Shravan's got a question. Do we have flexibility of doing training on noon hours in weekends? Okay, so Shravan, we stick to the US timings and India timings, and they intersect, at this time, right? 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. Because if you look at it, Mike's, starting the training at 7 a.m. in the morning. So if we try to do it at noon, I don't know how that might work out for the folks that are in the US geography, Shravan. So I hope it's okay if we can stick to this, because this is the only time that works globally for people in all countries worldwide. Okay. All right, great. So folks, we'll see you on the 5th of November, right? And just to recap now what we're going to cover on the 5th of November, if you want to just practice this a little bit, let me see if I can open it up for you in an email. So I'll just pick up the mail that I've sent to all of you, okay? And in this email, right at the bottom, you'll see basics of statistics for analytics, right? And you can actually view the video here. So if you click on the video, it'll open up the class for you. Please feel free to actually go through this particular class and learn a little bit about statistics before you join the next class. You'll also notice that there's the materials there. So if you click on the materials, right? And I'm going to open up a separate page for this particular batch very shortly, so don't worry about that. But if you open up the materials, you'll see the introduction to statistics presentation as well, right? So all of you can go through that before the 5th of November. And 5th of November onwards, every Saturday, Sunday, we've got classes coming up, right? All right, so thanks everyone for your time today, and please do make it a point to find some time and go through, statistics, understand what are the different, thanks Mike, understand what are the different kind of variables, right? That would be great, and you've got that in this presentation. What are the population samples? What are different types of data analysis? What are the central tendencies in data? What's the difference between a mean, median, and a mode? Right, all of these things are there, and there's even some data out there in Excel for you to have a look at. So some of you may want to get a head start by watching that video, and I know next weekend you're not doing a lot, right? So if you could find time and watch this video, go through this presentation, I think it will add substantially to how fast you will progress in the next class. So will everyone please promise that you will go through at least let's say 30 minutes of the video, okay, with the deck, with the presentation? All right, that's superb. I really appreciate the spirit of the batch. Right, so thanks everybody, and have a great day if you're in the US, and have a good night's sleep if you're anywhere in Asia. Thanks and good night everybody. Bye-bye.